House of Amarin by Cordy. Chapter 1. Prologue. The world of Marriath, a realm with a single landmass of around 150 million square kilometers, surrounded by an ocean on all sides. It is filled with various sceneries, be it high, snow-filled mountaintops, deep, lush valleys, or giant rivers, flowing along as veins of the earth itself, hot deserts with golden dunes, thick, humid rainforests, and giant grassy plains. The landscape is just as diverse as the people living on it. It is a world of men, beast folk, and wild beasts of all sizes, a world where magic is just as ancient as the first writings of humans or the first bone carvings of the beast folk. But there is a fourth species besides them, one that leaves no records behind, has no culture and no aim, one that is unnatural, the undead. Their origin is a mystery, but they were always there, even in the ancient lore, from time immemorial, from when neither of the two intelligent species of Marriath had the gift of writing. Back in the days when they could only pass on their history by word of mouth, they were there with them. No matter if it's the corpse of an animal, beast folk, or a human, it has a chance to stand up and walk again. It can't be known which corpse will stand back up and which will remain dead. Nobody knows why that is, and nobody managed to figure it out. Yet there were, and still are, attempts on both sides to uncover the mystery of Marriath. Why do the dead return, and why does it happen seemingly at random? When the dead rises, it loses all attachment to its previous life. The most kind and benevolent people could turn into beings that care about one thing, creating more of themselves. And the easiest way is killing others. Once killed by an undead, it guarantees that or it returns as the same wretched existence that ended their life. Even worse, there were examples throughout the thousands of years of Marriath's history that undead creatures, if living long enough, they were not just gaining intelligence, but even rose to a level that rivaled those who were leading their tribes, cities, countries, empires. These events always resulted in bloody wars, birthing more and more undead. 4,000 years ago, it almost resulted in a civilization-ending cataclysm. Luckily for the humans and beast folks alike, their alliance managed to turn the tides of the war. It took over 200 years to cut down the undead menace and mostly obliterate it, reclaiming the world for themselves. Since then, it has been customary to burn the dead, and even when hunting, they use up everything from the animal to prevent any chance of letting an undead rise up from it. Of course, they inevitably appear from time to time. The many mercenary groups, guilds, and adventurers who since then populated the world are always ready to search the land and keep them at bay, to always keep them from growing to a level like before. After the Dark Ages, as they call those bloody and dangerous periods, where the survival of the living species was at risk, 6 families rose to the top of Marriath, the 6 houses as they are called today, the bloodline of the greatest heroes and the first true mages, sons and daughters of the first warlocks and witches, descendants of sorcerers of immense strength, capable of leveling cities by themselves. They were the bulwark fighting against the undead menace, and when peace was achieved, only 6 of these families remained standing, 4 from the humans and 2 from the beast folks' side. One of these families bears the name of Amarin. Their progenitor was a warlock, mastering 4 completely opposing elements of the realm's 8 natural aspects: air, fire, water, earth, metal, nature, darkness, and light. He managed to wield fire and water simultaneously, with darkness and light accompanying it, a feat that none other could replicate. Later on, mages did appear, wielding 4 elements, but none managed to wield those that were each other's natural adversaries. After his death, 60 years after the end of the Dark Ages, Arias Amarin's ashes were laid to rest in the family's mausoleum, where he remains to this day. Thousands of years later, the House of Amarin is still just as powerful as in his time. It lords over 600,000 square kilometers of land on the northern edge of Marriath. Their territory is home to many mountain ranges and deep valleys, a place where the winters are harsh and snow-filled, while the summers are cool and refreshing. There are many empires or kingdoms whose size is more significant than theirs, but none would think they would be able to stand up to them. Either of the six houses instills the same thought for anyone who hears their names: power. "Where is Leah?" a voice asked, and it was clearly upset. It was a deep baritone as the owner of the voice pushed open the double-sided dark oak wood doors leading into a frozen room. It belonged to a man who was around 2 meters tall. He had broad shoulders and mane-like black hair. His chest hair was peeking out from the top of his white silk shirt that almost burst open as he was heaving heavily. He was blowing steam onto his thick, bushy beard from his nose, looking like an angry bull. The room he just barged into was cold, way below 0 degrees. The gray stone walls of the castle and the complex tiled floors were covered with a thin layer of ice, broken apart as soon as he stormed inside, barefooted. Inside, in the middle of the square room, a massive block of ice was floating in the air. It was giving off unnatural, bone-chilling coldness. Next to it, on a small stool, a short, young little girl was standing, tiptoeing with a chisel in hand, scraping flakes of ice off of it right into a bucket below her. She was wearing a puffy jacket and trousers with knee-high boots, not to mention the big gloves and thick ear warmers on her head. Her long blonde hair was tied into 2 ponytails, and her icy blue eyes slowly turned toward the man. "Ha! Did she do something? Again?" she asked, hopping down from the stool, placing down her tools, and walking up to the man, only reaching up to his waist with the top of her head. "Because you spoiled her rotten," he answered as his hot breath left clouds behind in the room. "Blah, blah, blah!" She rolled her eyes, grabbing his hand and patting it. "She is just as much your daughter as mine, Kawu." "The boys were not as wild as she is, Rhaera, and we raised 3 of them." He huffed and puffed, making his wife laugh out loudly. "Don't be so sure about that." She stuck her tongue out because she knew their sons were just as naughty. The only difference was that their father could regulate them. Leah, their daughter? Impossible. Kawu did not have the heart to scold her. The real one who spoiled that little imp was Kawu himself. "So?" she asked, leading her husband out of the cold room and closing it behind her. She was taking off the puffy jacket, revealing a young, petite body behind it, wearing a pink, frilly shirt and skirt below it as she pulled the trouser from her legs. What did she do now? "Stole the staff of Parthorn. He came to raise his complaints because of her antics. He is still the head of the 3rd branch. He took it as an open humiliation from the 1st branch." "Ha!" Rhaera snorted, raising her eyebrows. "Best if he takes it that way, then. My 11-year-old daughter outsmarts and outplays the head of the 3rd branch? It just shows why they are the 3rd and we the 1st. My blood leads the House of Amarin, and as long as I give birth to kids like her, it will stay that way." She grinned proudly. Why can't you 4 branches work seamlessly together?" Kawu sighed, shaking his head. "You are thinking too deeply into it?" Rhaera chuckled as the two walked through their castle's lit stone corridors, arriving at the front garden. The weather was clear and sunny as it was the middle of summer. The air was refreshing, staying between 20 and 25 degrees Celsius, as their home was high up in the mountains. Wherever one looked, they could see the tall mountain ridges, their topside covered in snow all the time. When winter came, thick clouds usually hid them away. When snowfall came, it wrapped everything in its pure, white blanket. Getting here and reaching the ancestral home of the Amarin family could only be done so if someone knew the terrain inside and out, knew the secret passages along the steep canyons and ridges. That was only possible by someone who was part of the 4 branches of this ancient bloodline, or had enough strength and courage to bypass their defenses through the air. For someone from the outside world, there was no difference between members of the House of Amarin. They had no unique names or titles. But thousands of years ago, 4 branches were formed inside the Amarin family. Their numbers were not fixed, and they changed places many times. It always depended on which line had the more talented members in it. The first branch always represented the leaders that the outside was familiar with. They were the ones who kept in contact with the other kingdoms, empires, cities, and other houses. The second and third branches were responsible for their territories and ensuring everything worked smoothly. Then there was the fourth branch. They were not included in the family life of the House of Amarin. They were made up of individuals of all the other 3 branches, as their mission was simple: find and exterminate any undead they knew about. They were the armed forces of the family, their hammer that came down on their enemies and the enemies of all living beings. Even if the House of Amarin was in high competition amongst its branches, it kept them at the top of their powers, constantly pushing them forward and never letting them fall into a false sense of security. If an outside danger arose, whether undead or not, any competition between the branches was dropped, and they stepped up as one entity. This is why nobody knew what went on behind closed walls. "Did you find her?" Kawu asked, watching his wife, who was scanning the mountaintops. "Yep." Rhaera nodded with a small smile. "She is having fun with the scepter." She chuckled, waving her hand as a creamy-colored speck of light jumped out from her palm, forming a mirror before them. An image appeared on it a little later, showing a young girl high up the mountains in knee-high snow. She was wearing only a white skirt and top, unbothered by the cold. Her light blonde-colored hair reached down to her shoulders, and her eyes had different colors. One was like a sapphire, while the other shone in a ruby-colored light. Her porcelain-white skin blended into the white background as she happily wielded the stolen scepter, forming loop-the-loops from ice, one after another. "Foo, foo, foo!" She giggled after stringing 4 of them together and summoning a ramp from pure ice that she immediately scaled like a little monkey. Standing at the top of it, she was grinning happily, holding the scepter in her tiny hands. "Here we go!" she shouted, jumping down and skidding forward on the newly built track, heading toward the first loop. Her bare feet were covered in a reddish light as she slid forward with incredible speed, laughing loudly as she completed the first loop, going for the second right after. "Damn, she's good." Kawu clicked his tongue, watching his daredevil daughter. "Her mana reserves are already at the stage of a full-grown man." Rhaera nodded with a proud smile. "She won't be any worse than her brothers, at least." "Was there any doubt?" Kawu asked. "She started late." Her mother nodded with a bit of a frown. "By her age, her brothers were granted the title of mage. She is still far from that, especially if she only learns how to play around. Kids have to be kids." Kawu smiled while Rhaera just looked up at him with a raised eyebrow. "So, who spoils who?" He looked away, scratching his bearded cheeks. Whatever. Toss me up." She chuckled, and her husband didn't question her at all. Reaching down, he let her sit into his palm as he took a deep breath and flung her up to the sky like a rocket. Her petite body quickly ascended at least 200 meters before stopping. Transparent angel-like wings spread from her back, glittering in the sun's golden rays. They were made out of pure energy as she raised her hands, aiming. Just as with her wings, a sniper rifle formed from the air, twice the size of her body. Leaning in, looking into the scope, red magical formations were locking onto her daughter's body as she was still skateboarding, making her icy ramps and jumps with the scepter in her hands. As Rhaera's mana was getting concentrated in her weapons chamber, Leah finally sensed something. She quickly cast a flat ramp she could jump onto after a somersault, looking around with furrowed eyebrows. "What?" "Where?" she whispered, feeling like she was being watched. She turned around multiple times before finally noticing the bright, flickering spot in the air, dozens of kilometers away. Mom, no, Mom!" she cried out, already knowing what was happening. Leah hurriedly waved the scepter in her hand, forming 12 snowflakes-like shields before her, all made out of pure blue ice. "Not bad," Rhaera whispered, but still pulled the trigger on her rifle. The concentrated energy shot out like a bright beam, reaching Leah in a blink of an eye. Rhaera's control over her powers was immaculate. It blasted her shields apart, one by one, until it reached the final one. As soon as it broke Leah's last line of defense, it opened up, scattering into dozens of different directions, blasting snow into the air and burying her daughter under an avalanche. It took the young girl 10 minutes to dig herself out, gasping for air with messy hair, snow sticking to it. Even though she already showed great mastery of fire-based spells, she was feeling the cold that did not bother her until now. Even she couldn't battle the cold seeping under her skin from her wet clothes. "Oh, Mom!" she groaned, pulling herself out, using the scepter as a shovel and a walking stick simultaneously. She looked around, her teeth clattering as her clothes stuck to her body with freezing coldness. "Come back home," resonated Rhaera's voice around the mountain range. "Then we will talk about your true punishment, young girl." Chapter 2, Troublemaker. Inside the castle, Parthorn, the leader of the Third Branch, was sitting in a fancy, luxurious conference room. He was around 180 centimeters tall with short, vanilla-colored hair and blue eyes. He wore a simple black overall, tightly fitting to his lean body, lacking any regal pompousness or accessories. He looked like he was in his 20s but close to 60. He was the head of the Third Branch for the past 30 years, trying hard to raise themselves back to first place. They lost the prestigious title when his father died, alongside a handful of his supporters in a gruesome battle against the Undead. He could not keep up with the emerging genius of Rhaera later on, and had to concede the leading position of the House of Amarin. Sitting at the long table, accompanied by the castle's maids, he remembered the first time he lost against Rhaera. He was already past 30, and she was barely a teenager. Yet she wiped the floor with him. It was a one-sided victory. It was not a humiliation only because a prodigy like her in the family was a boon for everybody. Even if his branch was relegated to the third position as the years passed. Remembering it made him slowly tap on the table with his index finger, forming a small smile. This move of his still frightened the young maids in the room as they thought he was getting angry and impatient. He was a bit impatient, that was true, but he wouldn't bring it up. Being the leader of the First Branch, Rhaera held the position of the utmost importance. If she decided to make others wait, then they had to wait. Just as he was waiting for the past few decades, he knew that he had reached his own limit. Now his attention was focused on his sons and their talent. If he wanted to retake the title of First, they had to do it. He wasn't even considering the current Second Branch. They were not his target, as he could still remember what it felt like to be the head of the family. "History goes in a circle," he murmured, suddenly remembering the tales from his own father. The current Second Branch of the House of Amarin was the first before his line rose to the position. The family's leader back then was someone who was close to wielding light and darkness at the same time. He had already mastered the two opposing elements. He only had to find a way to cast them simultaneously without canceling each other out. Yet fate had a different idea about it, and he withered away in only a week. Nobody knew why, but his last words were telling, "I have failed. Forgive me." Nobody knows the true reason for his death, but everyone knows it happened because he suffered a backlash from his attempt to synchronize two opposing elements inside himself. What followed after was the slow decline of their branch and Parthorn's rise to prominence. "They do." Rhaera's voice suddenly arrived, bringing him back from reminiscing. "The branches circle around like the seasons. They come and go. There will be a day when your descendants will hold the first branch's position again, she said in a calm voice. But for now, you have no chance to regain your old glory, Parthorn. Nobody can tell that for sure. He smiled, looking at her. I can. She smiled back with confidence and power, yet she was sitting on her husband's arm like a little parrot. It was still weird to see it, no matter how many times he did. Parthorn couldn't help but chuckle a little as he sat up properly in his chair, seeing the bulky giant husband of hers standing there proudly, his hand held to his body, and the little Rhaera sitting on it like sitting on a bench. It was like a play performed by a traveling circus. It is not only you who could raise talent, Parthorn said, watching her blue eyes that were smiling proudly. I won't argue with that. She flashed her white teeth at him. But for now, my body sprouted some amazing kids. She laughed, patting her belly, making the maids standing in the room lower their heads with a deep crimson blush enveloping them. I had chosen my hubby well, she added, patting Kawu's arm to put her down on the head of the table. Her chair was already prepared with pillows on it so she could easily reach the top of the table. Your mouth is the same as always, Parthorn murmured, watching her and Kawu, who stood behind his wife's chair. As the husband of Rhaera, he could sit at the table, but he was neither part of the Amarin bloodline nor a native to their territory. He wasn't even human. He was a beast folk, a mighty bear to be exact. The fact that Rhaera married someone from the outside was already a shock in itself, but to marry someone from the beast's side, it was a risk in itself. It was not rare that humans and beast folk found love, but it was rare to sire descendants, especially rare. Yet Rhaera managed to do it, and not just once. Even more, her children all showed exceptional talent, completely retaining their human lineage. It seemed her genes were just as dominant as her personality. What? Rhaera asked, seeing Parthorn's eyes wander towards Kawu, who just nodded at him, remaining silent. He knew the tradition, and he knew his place well before marrying into one of the 6 houses. He was willing to put up with everything as he was loyal to only one person, his wife. As long as she was happy, everything else was secondary. Nothing. Parthorn shook his head. Kawu, please, sit. He gestured with his hand, but the giant of a man shook his head. I'm good. Thank you. You know why I'm here, Parthorn said with a shrug after his answer, turning his eyes towards Rhaera. Your scepter is going to be brought back by my daughter. Don't worry about it. Rhaera waved her hand quickly. If there is nothing else, then she stole it, he continued, crossing his arms before his chest. And what does that show about your branch's capabilities? Rhaera countered, with a slight grin creeping up onto her face. That your girl paid off my good-for-nothing granddaughter, Coadriana. Parthorn leaned forward, crossed his fingers, and rested his chin on them. I already confiscated the goods she used for the bribe. He nodded toward the lonely box placed in the middle of the table. Leah traded these for her help in lifting my scepter. It can only be touched and unlocked by one of my own kin. Coadriana has already been locked up by me. Kawu came forward, picking up the box and bringing it before his wife, who opened up just so her face would turn tomato red, then ghostly white, then back to red as she closed it hurriedly. Kawu tried to hold a stoic, uninterested face, but his eyes were barely kept from twitching. What Leah stole was a toy, a simple little toy fan of theirs, that they usually use it when having some fun inside their bedroom. Now, Parthorn continued, showing the same smirk that he received from Rhaera. I don't want this to go public. I think you neither. I don't care what things you two use while having fun, but don't think I won't let it be spread amongst the people if you do not punish that imp you call a daughter. Oh, don't worry, Rhaera mumbled, grinding her teeth. She won't be able to sit for the next week or so. Not enough, Parthorn raised his hands. She needs discipline. A simple spanking or confinement to her room has no effect. Never had, as you can see. It didn't have any on you when you were her age either," he scoffed, leaning backward. "I'm listening." Rhaera recomposed herself, giving the box to her husband, who just made it disappear under his sleeves. "Both Leah and Koa need to learn the rules. They are too young to be sent to the Fourth for experience. And one of her brothers is there. He would spoil her," Rhaera added, somewhat agreeing with Parthorn. "That too," he murmured, not really wanting to think about Solrin, the third son of Rhaera, who was now already a major in the Fourth Branch. As it was their own military force, it was where most of their talented people gained experience against the undead in the House of Amarin. Leah's brothers served there, rising through the ranks before returning to the family. Sooner or later, Leah would also experience it, but not yet. She was still too young for that. "But," Kawu added, "Solrin may stay with the Fourth. He already said he likes it there and aims to set a new record in the number of slain undead creatures. So when Leah comes to age and goes to gain experience, he may still be there." It was clearly evident that Kawu was incredibly proud of his son and just wanted to brag about him to Parthorn, mainly because his son was still not even a captain, only a first lieutenant, not to mention being a major. At least Leah would be more mature by then. Parthorn scratched his throat, stepping over Kawu's words. "What I am suggesting is very simple. Send them to the academy." There were many academies, too many to even count. But when it was mentioned, everyone knew which one Parthorn was talking about. The only institution in the realm to be recognized by that word alone. Its real name was the Institute of 8 Elements, but everyone just called it the Academy. It was established after the end of the Dark Ages by the Six Houses. It was to nurture the most talented people of the realm and make sure nobody forgets what happened throughout those dark years. To ensure some people are always ready to prevent it from happening again. Getting into it was a feat in itself. It was not money nor power, but the sheer talent needed to join in as a student that made it hard. Anyone enrolled in the academy was trained by the best, and they were producing the best. To make it possible, they also needed the best young talents. Nothing less was acceptable. Of course, there were always young geniuses who, in the end, failed, flunked out, or got themselves expelled. There were very few things as shameful of an achievement as those, especially because the academy was free. If you get in, you get guidance from the top figures of the realm for free, yet you still fail? It was not something one could explain, not when the academy was jointly backed by the Six Houses, financing its spending. Rhaera thought for herself, scratching her chin. "Rarely do ours attend the academy," she murmured, as the houses usually taught their own, and if anything, they supplied teachers instead of students. Leah's second brother was also a teacher at the academy. His name was Lauren, and when he picked up a teaching position in the academy, Rhaera and Kawu were the most surprised. He was a restless boy, barely managing to stay in one place for long, but now he had been teaching there for the past 9 years. A feat none of them thought possible. He wouldn't spoil her too much, I think. Rhaera thought to herself before looking into Parthorn's eyes. "It would be a good experience for the two," he said, reading her thoughts. "As there are multiple people there from the Six Houses, they would have the authority to curb her wild side." "I am going to curb your curved blade between your legs soon enough," Rhaera scoffed. But Parthorn just shook his head. "Anyway, I see the points you are trying to make, and agree with its merits. We can send the two there." She nodded after exchanging a glance with her husband, who also agreed with a quick nod. "Good. The new semester starts in a month. We should send the two together." Parthon exclaimed, standing up and dusting his hands. "I am going back home to make preparations. Send my scepter back as soon as possible." "Will do," Rhaera said, not keeping him from leaving. After the two were left alone in the room, Rhaera's forehead banged against the table like a hammer. "That little I am so gonna skin her buttocks." There. Kawu rubbed her head with a smile. "Why are you so calm? You were the angriest at the start." She raised her head, which was turning red, and pouted like a kid. "Because now we have reached a resolution, and she is going to learn how to act properly in the academy." Kawu chuckled, hoisting his wife up and letting her sit on his arm once again. "Or she is going to be the first member of one of the 6 houses to be expelled," Rayra groaned, almost making her husband kick his leg out while walking forward. "She wouldn't, Kawu said, looking at Rayra, who just shrugged once again. "She is my blood. The chance for it is pretty high, my big papa bear," she moaned, rubbing her face against his bearded, dumbfounded expression, showering Kawu with kisses and purring like a cat. Chapter 3. Going to School 1. It was late at night when Leah took a bath in the luxurious bathhouse under the castle. She took in sharp breaths every time her still red buttocks moved or touched the water's surface, making it hard for her to submerge into it. "How?" She moaned with teary eyes, her lengthy hair held up in a bun. "I just wanted to play. No fair. I can't cast ice magic." She sniffled, feeling wronged and hurt as Rayra did spank her, right in front of the castle and letting all the servants see how her fair buttocks turned bright red in an instant. "Damn, Koa, you snitch!" She bit her lower lip, finally submerging herself into the water and releasing a sharp cry as it stung like nothing before. In one of the castle's spires, Rayra was sitting in a study surrounded by tall, extensive bookshelves. The window behind her looked over the mountains, the clear, starry sky, and the giant full moon in the distance. Before her, a sturdy oak table was holding up hundreds of dossiers as she sat on multiple booster seats, doing her duties as the head of the family. She was going through reports from the 4th branch, from the land they ruled over, and from their subordinates and agents in different kingdoms. A knock came from the door close to midnight, and Rayra just waved her hand, unlocking it with her mana. The one who came in was a young, fit girl, reaching around 150 centimeters in height. She was wearing tight-fitting leather trousers with a sleeveless vest, prompting dozens of pockets. It left her stomach free, and showing, same with her fair hands, only wearing a tank top under it. Her purple hair was tied in a ponytail as she placed a hand on her chest, bowing towards Rayra ceremoniously. Her age was, at first glance, around 16, and her violet eyes were looking at Rayra with unquestionable loyalty. "How have you been, Aurora?" Rayra smiled, putting down the papers and watching her adopted daughter. "Fine." She replied, not by words, but by writing in the air with a finger, letting the characters float before her in a dark purple hue before disappearing. She was rescued as a little kid by Kawu and Rayra when the two were on a trip, and they came across a bandit attack on a merchant's caravan. There were a few survivors, including a little baby who lost her parents. Nobody was willing to take her in, but neither Rayra nor Kawu was willing to leave her alone, so they brought her home and named her Aurora. The pair raised her as their own, and soon she showed talent, especially while casting magic with the element of darkness. As she grew older, it was apparent that she did suffer an injury that was not evident at first, as she never managed to form words. She could only communicate by hand gestures and by writing. Not that it mattered to her. By the time she was 14, she had shown great interest in battling the undead, and she was one of the youngest to join the family's 4th branch. Since then, she had been out with them, gaining experience with deadly encounters and being a Solrin's Vanguard squad member. She came back a week ago to make her reports, and it seemed Rayra had a mission for her now. "Have you been briefed by Kawu?" she asked, and Aurora just shook her head in answer. I am going to have you accompany my daughter to the academy. You are going to enroll as another student." "Me?" She pointed at herself, asking with her eyes instead of words. "Yep, it is a good experience, but besides learning, I want you to keep an eye on her." Yes, she signed, nodding heavily, taking it as one of the greatest honors to be the bodyguard of one of the direct bloodlines of Rhaera. Relax. It shouldn't be a difficult or heavy job. You just need to make sure of 3 key things. She stood up and walked before her table, sitting atop it so they would be at eye level. 1. Don't let Coadriana drag her into trouble. Coadriana? Aurora tilted her head, writing in the air before she recognized the name. Ah, the granddaughter of Lord Parthorn. She tried to woo me. She does not look too bad, but I am not into girls. I assume she is still just as wild? Kinda. Rhaera chuckled. She is a kind girl, but loves men and women way too much. I know she wants to share her love for everybody, but don't let my little angel become a succubus. She has to keep her virginity until marriage. Lady, your little angel is already a little devil. At least that is what I heard. Aurora quickly signed, tilting her head to the right with raised eyebrows. Gah. Rhaera flinched, but soon she just sighed. I am not playing around, Aurora. She has to remain a virgin until she is married. We need strong descendants, and she must fulfill her duty as a daughter of mine. I was the same. She can't be fooling around and wasting her precious blood until she settles. Got it? Keep her intact. Roger! She nodded, saluting and waiting for her further instructions. Second, she must complete the 4 years of the academy, even if it takes 6 years. Once again, Aurora tilted her head towards the right, but her fingers stopped mid-air, not questioning the numbers. If she, for whatever reason, flunks out, gets expelled, don't even come back home, Rhaera said, looking into her eyes, making Aurora shudder. Third, protect her life. If she gets into trouble, you don't have to bail her out every time. Just make sure she does not die. Injuries are permitted. Setbacks are permitted. Even if she loses a limb, we can replace that. What we can't lose is her life. Got it? Of course. Don't worry, my lady. She won't die while I still draw breath. Aurora signed with her hands, making a solemn vow to Rhaera, going on to one knee. I know. That is why I am sending you with her. She jumped off the table, raising her up, hugging her body. I trust you, my little night flower. You are my daughter. I wouldn't trust anyone else with this. The third branch's home was a few hundred kilometers away. It was located not amongst the mountain ranges, but at their opposite, natural border, the shores to the endless blue. It was the single biggest body of water surrounding the continent of Marriath. At their end, the water was dark blue, cold, and filled with big chunks of ice when winter came. Yet it was not inhospitable at all. Their country had a substantial fleet of fishing boats, harvesting the seemingly inexhaustible riches of the endless blue. Up here, at the northernmost point of the continent, the soil was hard and not the best for growing enough crops for the millions of people living here. So most of their food came from the sea. The third branch was always tasked to ensure that the food supply never failed and that everybody was appropriately fed in their territory. Right now, in a luxurious villa on the pebble-filled shores, a young girl was watching the dark waves hit against the hundreds of little rocks on the ragged beach. She was relatively tall with her, 175 centimeters. She wore only her long black hair, reaching right down to her perky, petite butt. She was holding onto the iron bars fitted onto the window of her room, watching the outside world. Ooh, no fair, she moaned, twisting her waist left and right, but she was literally imprisoned in her own room. Even worse, she was told that she would be sent to school, even if that is the Academy of Legends. It was still school. She'd already finished her studies once, so she was not looking forward to returning to school again. At least on paper, after turning 16, she was already a woman. She should be free to do what she wants. Yet, being the descendant of one of the 6 houses, there were more red tapes than she liked, especially when it came to boys, or girls, or both at the same time. Coadriana. Her father's voice came as he opened the door, walking in. He was similar to Parthorn in both build and facial features. He looked like a dashing young man in his early 20s with curly, shoulder-length black hair. "Damn it, girl, dress up already!" he shouted, seeing his daughter standing nakedly at the window. "Others may see you." "Let them watch. They like it," she countered, perfectly proud of her slim, fit, deeply tanned body, accompanied by her glowing, deep blue eyes. "You—" Her father stumbled, not knowing what to do with her. She was always like this. They even caught her molesting one of the maids when she was only 6. It was a constant battle to keep her pure. Ultimately, her father, Tamuas, decided to place a seal on his daughter's chastity, ensuring that part of her at least remains intact. "Boo! I want to go out!" She rolled on her bed, bored to death. "You are going to have time to make friends at the academy." Tamuas sighed, starting to clean up after his daughter. He just couldn't help it. She looked like his late wife, and he couldn't reprimand her in any way when he looked into her eyes. "Then take the seal off of me," she pleaded, looking up at him, sprawled out on her bed. "No," he replied immediately. "It stays. I would have taken it off, but you are not bringing a husband home. You just goof around with different guys and girls all the time. How would I know which is the perfect fit for me if I can't test them?" she answered, clicking her tongue. Her father's only response was nothing but rolling his eyes. "At least I won't go alone, but with Leah." "Well, you should not have stolen your grandfather's scepter. It just collected dust anyway. What is the big deal? We are one family, are we not?" "And you steal from family?" Tamuas asked, placing his hands on his waist. Ugh, it was not stealing. She just wanted to borrow it to have some fun. Coadriana protested weakly. "This is why you go to school. Again, it seems you need to relearn some things. You may be 16, but you act like Leah, who is 11. And you act like 40. I am 40. He stomped in place before sighing and rubbing his face. "Look, kiddo. Just for once, please, be a good girl and take care of your cousin while you are away. Okay?" "That I can do," Coadriana said with a kind voice, prompting a smile. "I like that little whirlwind." "Good." Tamuas nodded, rubbing her head before going out of the room. As he was halfway through the door, he suddenly stopped, looking back over his shoulder. "Also, Aurora is going to accompany you too," he added, closing the door behind himself, hearing his daughters wailing from the other side. Chapter 4. Going to School 2. When the day of departure came, the 3 girls met before the castle of the first branch. On the grassy field, Coadriana was moaning happily, stretching, wearing nothing but way too short hot pants and a lousy t-shirt with holes in it. On the other hand, Leah was dressed up in a frilly white skirt and a similarly designed cream-colored blouse. She was tucking her loose hair behind her ear while watching Coadriana's tanned body with her differently colored eyes. She was trying to decide if the same clothes would look good on her or not. And deep inside, Leah looked up at her free-spirited cousin. Aurora was the only one who wore the Academy's issued uniform. It consisted of a white school shirt and a black vest over it with golden trims. On her legs, she wore black tights and a plain, black, pleated knee-length skirt. She was fixing her tie with one hand, holding her coat with the other. Her uniform also had decorations on her shoulders, prompting a golden stripe, signaling that she was a first-year student. After getting into the academy, everyone would have to dress like her and receive a differently colored emblem on their vest, signaling the element they chose to pursue. Behind them, Rhaera and Kawu stood silently, watching their daughter with a smile, talking via voice transmissions. I remember the first time I went out, Rhaera said. Instead of the academy, I was joining an adventurer group. This is better, Kawu replied immediately. I wouldn't want to put her in that kind of danger. Well, I did meet you. She smiled, looking up at him. Maybe she also brings home a husband after the 4 years of learning. That would be good. Kawu nodded. I hope she finds a strong one. Find one as caring as you, and I'm going to be happy. Rhaera chuckled happily, turning her eyes toward Aurora. Maybe she will find one too. Doubt it. Kawu shook his head. But that would be a pleasant surprise. Sending her... Are you expecting trouble? From... No. Rhaera answered immediately with a strong voice, reprimanding her husband. Parthorn may be a hard ass and aiming at my spot, but he is family. He wouldn't do anything that would hurt her. Isn't he doing this? Expecting that Leah would fail and bring shame to us? Ah, I know how it was in your family, Kawu, but here, we are not like that. Rhaera sighed, looking into his eyes with a kind gaze. Parthorn really just wanted to discipline her before she took up a bigger role in the family. One way or another, she is going to represent us when traveling the world. She needs to do that part well. Same with his granddaughter, or why would he risk sending her to the academy? She is a bigger troublemaker than our child. No, there is no underlying ploy here, my dear Papa Bear. He truly wants them to mature so they can represent the House of Amarin, anytime, anywhere. Yet your two branches are bickering left and right every time. Butting heads, he mumbled, still not used to it. Yet he had been living here for decades, especially because where he grew up, these kinds of family rivalries were bloody and dangerous. In his homeland, might was right, and the weak were crushed by their own kin. That is that, and this is this. Believe me, if Leah were hurt, he would be amongst the first to retaliate with force. Same with me. If Koa gets into trouble, I will stand up for her. Then, I am sending Aurora because people's ambitions and minds are not something you can predict for sure. Being who we are, there are always groups that aim at us, for one reason or more. Revenge, jealousy, fame, madness. Whatever the reason, there will always be people to challenge us, Rhaera said with a slight but wild smirk on her face. I was the target of assassinations multiple times while growing up. Nobody who attempted it lives today. Neither do their families. Sooner or later, Leah needs to experience the world. A sheltered life is something that we can't afford to provide for our kin, she murmured, watching her daughter's figures. Our duty is something we cannot ignore, not as long as we breath. As she said that, from a distance, a slick, flying ship was closing in on the castle's grounds. It was shining in a silver light, and a greenish hue surrounded the bottom of it as it flew forward. It was just the same as any other ship sailing the ocean, only this one did so in the air, missing any kind of sails, only having the body of a caravel. It was made of silver, painted with gold trims and edges, sparkling in the sun's rays, circling a few times before landing on the clearing. As it was coming down, it produced a low, deep hum, shaking their stomachs and going silent only after landing. A ramp descended from the top as Parthorn walked down, nodding towards Rhaera. I am happy to see everyone is ready and nobody is late, he said, directing it mainly toward his granddaughter. Uncle, can I try driving the Pearl? Leah asked, raising her hand with a grin. It was not the first time she had seen or ridden the ship, and this was not the first time asking it. No. His answer came swiftly, the same as always. Tsk, cheapskate, Leah mumbled, drawing a chuckle from Coadriana and a slap on the back of her head from Rhaera, who walked forward in the meantime. Owie, she moaned as her head bobbed back and forth. I'll make sure we travel safely, Parthorn said, and Rhaera just smiled, nodding while Kawu was loading his daughter's baggage onto the Pearl. Aurora quickly came forward, helping him while Coadriana just yawned, walking up the ramp as her stuff was already on it. "Leah!" Rhaera turned towards her excited daughter. I'll be good," she grinned in answer. "I hope so." She laughed, ruffling up her hair. "What I wanted to say is that this will be the first time when you can't hide behind Kawu or me. If you land yourself in some trouble, your name of Amarin will not be a boon but a hindrance. People will either expect more from you than from anyone else or are going to try and use you. You have to be sharp." "Oh." She blinked her mismatched eyes, a bit surprised at her serious tone. "I will be cautious, Mom, and it is just 4 years. It will be quick, and I am going to tell you everything when I'm back. It is going to be so much fun." She clapped, already regaining her happy-go-lucky attitude. "I am sure of that," Rhaera laughed, hugging her daughter closely, rubbing her back as she returned it with love, kissing her mother's cheek. "Do I get a hug too?" Kawu asked, coming back down. "Nya ha ha ha." Leah grinned, jumping up at him, rubbing her head against her father's face and showering him with kisses before letting go. "I'll call you when we arrive." She showed a V sign, rushing up to the ship, excited beyond belief for her first real adventure. "She reminds me of someone," Parthorn said, standing next to Rhaera, who by now had moist eyes. "So," she said, gulping loudly, holding back her tears. "Nothing," he said, walking past her and going up the ramp. "I'm just feeling a bit nostalgic. Those years were filled with excitement for me, too." "Huh," Rhaera chuckled, watching the ship quickly rise to the air as she waved to her daughter while they left. "It is not the first time one of our kids left the security of our home," Kawu chuckled, rubbing Rhaera's head. "I know," she moaned, wiping her eyes. "Humph, I can't help it, okay. It's not like you abandoned her. She just goes to school for 4 years. Her husband laughed, picking her up and letting her sit on his shoulder. "And after school, she is going to be an adult already. Ha! Now I really want another kid." Rhaera whispered it into her husband's ear, who stumbled a little, but his grin grew wider. "Again?" he asked, licking his lips. "Well, Leah was conceived when Solrin left for the 4th. "Kawo," Rhaera moaned, rubbing against him. "I want one-y. Snuggling up to a baby while she or he is little is the best. How, let's try for it, please. Pretty please ye." "Roger, leave it to me," Kawu replied, hastening his steps, hurrying towards the castle, followed by Rhaera's laugh. "She is not really bothered by it, huh?" Coadriana chuckled, leaning against the pearl's white railing. She was watching Leah, who was her usual energetic self. The moment they were above the clouds, she immediately bounced towards Parthorn, asking him if she could go and play, holding a long, metallic board. He looked at her, seeing Rhaera and Leah for a moment, before nodding with a sigh. She just laughed happily, rushing towards the back of the ship and jumping off the boat without hesitation. She stood on the board, slipping her fair feet into the straps on it while in mid-air, and with a wave of her hand, a red energy rope flew out from her palm, tying around the ship's railing. Since then, she has been surfing atop the clouds, doing flips and jumps, and enjoying herself to the fullest, especially when whale-sized birds flew close by or skyfishes jumped around her, flapping their scaly wings. "It's not like you are going away forever," Parthorn answered. "Plus, she is Rhaera's kid. When Rhaera was her age, she was already touring the continent. Rhaera is the family's second youngest member to reach the rank of Magi Adepti by the age of 8 inches. Ooh. Coadriana twitched her eyebrows, looking a bit lost as her grandfather immediately caught on to her expression. "Don't tell me you don't know," he grumbled while Aurora just waved her hand, writing into the air. Not everyone remembers the old titles. Most people use the modern naming conventions in the outside world. Initiate, Mage, Adept, and Archmage. It is much easier to remember those." "Which is incorrect," Parthorn replied with a stern and commanding tone. "Mage, warlock, witch, whatever they call themselves, is an insult to the real titles. True wielders of power still use the ranking system of old. Same with the school you are going to attend." He reprimanded not just Coadriana, but Aurora too. "Its ranks are acknowledged by nature itself. You can't simplify it, no matter how tempting it seems. You are not some wandering schmucks. Come on, list them for me." I know. The laugh of Leah came, who was listening to them from afar. Pulling on her energy rope, she flung herself on board the Pearl, wiping off the sweat from her forehead, replying with a grin, "Mom always tested me." First level, Magi Initiati. Second level, Magi Discipli. Third level, Magi. They are representatives of the first level of magic. Nowadays, people already call them mages, but the first two are nothing. Really, anyone can reach those levels. She grinned, explaining to Parthorn with a proud face. Reaching the third level is what makes a true mage. Then comes the following. Fourth level, Magi Adepti. Fifth level, Magi Speciali. Sixth level, Magi Extremi. He. Mom gained the title of Extremi when she was 35. She was the youngest in the family to ever do so. Yeah. Parthorn nodded, smiling a little as his official title was also Extremi, namely, Extremi of Ice. Your mother made the family proud that day. Tee-hee, Leah giggled, sticking out her tongue. But since then, Mother has already risen 2 levels. The second trio is what the world knows as Adept Mages. After that comes the Archmage, but there are 3 phases in reality. She continued the explanation, and it was evident she was frequently lectured about it. Everyone in this stage is an expert of the realm. 7th level, Magi Supri. 8th level, Magi Legendary. 9th level, Magi Ascendri. The 3 Raifuf. She grabbed at her tongue as she managed to bite it. Ouchie, I hate that word. Ha. Ha. Parthorn laughed, watching her, but he nodded with an approving look in his eyes. Good. At least one of you is not afraid of reading books. Being at any rank of 3 Re is a celebration in itself. When Rhaera reached the rank of Supri, her strength alone propelled our house into the rank of the top 3 houses, reaching the status of legendary. Our family is now a contender to be the first of the houses, he said proudly, standing straight behind the wheel of the Pearl. Of course, before Rhaera, he would never say this, nor would he display such a proud look. What about Ascendri? Aurora asked, writing in the air. Arias Amarin, Warlock of Darkness, Magi of Light. He was the last Ascendri in our ranks. None since then managed to reach the same height. Why is that? Coadriana asked, receiving a stare from her grandfather, while Leah just chuckled, answering her. Tribulation. The last rank requires to survive nature's test, she said, pointing towards the sky. That is why Uncle Parthorn said it is a system recognized by nature. Every 3 batches have their tribulations, but the last is the most dangerous. As she explained, Parthorn nodded with a smile, letting her play the role of the little teacher. The first tribulation comes in the form of flames. It attacks the body, like having a heavy fever. Mom already prepared me on how to go through it. Very few ever died from it, Parthorn added. Even untrained individuals can go through it, as it is nothing but your body opening up for the mana of the world. Your 9 energy points from then on are yours to control. I hope I won't suffer like my dad, Coadriana murmured, not wanting to experience it at all, as her father had such a fever for 3 days straight that one could boil an egg over his head. I am ready for it whenever it comes, Aurora added as both girls were at the Magi level. When breaking through to the next trio of ranks, they would experience their first tribulation. Listening to them, Leah slowly pouted as she was the only disciple here. The second tribulation, Leah continued, scratching her throat, not wanting to stand out as the only one who was not a magi yet, is a tribulation of your mastered elements. It goes rampaging around you, and you must rein them in, or you will be destroyed, she said proudly, as she had already listened to her mother's explanation of her own tribulation when reaching the Supri level. The last, she murmured, looking at Parthorn, who smiled at her. It does not come at the end of the Ascendry level. It is the start of it. Nature bombards you with 3 red lightning bolts. Surviving it, you became someone who could travel anywhere in the realm and even beyond it. Beyond it? The 3 asked, raising their eyebrows, but Parthorn just smiled. There are legends that there are worlds above ours. Of course, I can't say anything about it, as I am not in the levels of Rye. When I asked Rhaera about it, she remained silent. She said she couldn't explain it. You have to feel it for yourself. Maybe she wanted to motivate me. You girls should not look farther than your eyes can truly see. Focus on your current strengths and work on your weaknesses. That is why these 4 years will be a great experience for you. When I get back, I will be already a Ree, Leah exclaimed, showing V signs with her tiny fingers, making Parthorn laugh loudly. If you manage to do that, girl, your line will remain the first branch for the next millennia. Foo, 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 she huffed and puffed, placing her hands on her hips. You just wait, Uncle. Chapter 5. Arriving at School. Traveling with the Pearl still took them more than 10 hours to arrive where the academy was established. Yet instead of descending below the clouds, they started to climb higher. Where are we going? Leah asked, now dressed the same way as Aurora. After getting near, Parthorn ordered them to change. For the youngest, this was not a problem. She even liked the uniform, trying to look as much of an adult as possible wearing it. On the other hand, Quadriana was moaning and fixing it on her body, feeling uncomfortable with so many clothes on. The Institute of 8 Elements is not located on the mainland. It is only accessible via flying, he explained, and suddenly they felt like passing through an invisible barrier. It was as if they were gently pushing through a veil made of silk before coming out on the other side. Looking forward, the girls' mouths, including Aurora, who had already traveled around the continent, were agape. A massive floating island had appeared before them from nowhere. It was a 100,000 square kilometer landmass with trees, mountains, and even some significant satellites orbiting it. They were also clearly man-made chunks of land, the size of cities with weird tower-like spires built on them, numbering 8 in total. On the main island, they could see a vast clearing with an extensive 5-story tall palace in the middle of it. It had multiple wings, forming an H shape, looking at it from above. It had a luxurious garden in the front, with fountains, green hedges, and blooming flowers everywhere. Watching it get closer as Parthorn slowly drove the Pearl towards it, Leah felt like their family was living in some rural town. Around the academy's main building, a city was established, serving as the home for many staff members, teachers, and even some students. They had their own economy and their own laws, as most of the jobs in the city were filled by the students, gaining experience in multiple ways. Parthorn slowly approached the docks, and after anchoring down at one of the open ramps, he clapped, drawing back the girls' odd thoughts to reality. "Wake up! You all look like bumpkins coming to the big city. Don't bring shame to our name." He walked forward, looking at them. "The showcase of wealth is one thing. We do not do that. Our priorities do not lie in showing off, but in producing results. But you have to acknowledge." "This city looks awesome," Quadriana murmured, looking at the many beautifully designed buildings before them. Even the docks had buildings made out of white brick, clean and sparkling, decorated with statues of ancient beasts, figures of women and men, and elaborate heraldries. Furthermore, there were not just different shops and houses, but also manors and estates owned by influential people and families. Yes, it does. Her grandfather nodded, not arguing with that. Where are we going to live? Aurora asked, writing a straightforward question in the air that also drew the excited eyes of Leah toward Parthorn. In the dorm of the academy, of course, he replied with a sly grin. You didn't think we would let you live in one of the houses here? Or in your own courtyard with maids, did you? No. You are not coming here to have a vacation, girls, he explained, quickly turning Coadriana's face sour. Bringing boys and girls into a dormitory was exceedingly more complicated than bringing them home. You are here to study and learn. This is not a vacation for you troublemakers. ... Aurora remained silent, finding it pointless to argue as she was sent here to do her task and not because of punishment. Like the other two. You three are lucky, Parthorn added. Why? Leah asked, already excited and not minding the fact she had to live in the dormitories. She could have fun either way. Because you three will share a room, at least you won't be separated, Parthorn answered with a smile. Yay, that is so cool! Leah clapped happily, looking at the other two. Aurora just nodded. Knowing this way, she could protect her the best. It was evident to her that they would be housed together. Only Coadriana let out a small, defeated sigh. She knew this was mainly because she was not trusted enough, for a good reason. Now she really couldn't bring back anybody just like that. Come. Parthorn walked forward, coming down the Pearl, already looking at the 4 arriving people, wearing uniforms similar to the girls', only they had 3 stripes on their shoulders, signaling they were third-year students working at the docks of the academy. Coadriana sighed audibly after looking around their new home for the upcoming 4 years. Their room was in the bottom left wing of the academy, on the 3rd floor. It was the wing specifically for female students, while the right wing was for male students. This part was highly regulated, and the school's disciplinary members enforced the rules with an iron hand. Many people attending the academy came from prestigious backgrounds. A scandal was not something that either party would want to deal with. The room was still considered spacious. It had enough room for the 3 beds, their own fireplace, and a leather couch before it. They also had an empty but sturdy bookshelf, going from floor to ceiling, an ample wardrobe for the 3 of them, and their own bathroom. Leah already rushed forward, throwing her bag onto the bed next to their window, claiming it as her own, while Aurora just nodded towards Coadriana, letting her choose from the remaining 2. Whatever. She sighed again, plopping her butt down onto the nearest one to the door. This is going to be great. We are sharing a room so we can always be together, and we can play a lot. Leah clapped, grinning from ear to ear, almost bouncing on her bed by just kneeling on it. We came to learn and not to fool around, Aurora added, writing it in the air, opening the wardrobe, and starting to unpack her suitcase. I know, but if you just work all day long, you are going to get sour, Leah countered. I don't want to turn into a grapefruit. She is right, Coadriana agreed. All of you need a bit of balance, Parthorn said, who arrived not long after them. He had already met up with the headmaster, finalizing everything, and came to say goodbye to the girls. Aurora, you need to let up a little, while you two need to pull yourself together a bit more, he said, looking at them. The moment I leave, you are going to be left to your own. It is time you start making your own decisions and bearing their consequences. If you steal something again, it is going to be different this time. It wasn't stealing, Coadriana and Leah said in perfect sync. We just borrowed it. Parthorn shook his head with a slight smile, hearing their almost immediate answer as if they had rehearsed it. Keep in mind that you are all wearing the name Amarin above your head. Don't bring shame to it. As he was saying it, Leah looked up by reflex before turning a bit red, realizing it too late, trying to act as if nothing had happened. When Parthorn finally left and they remained alone, it was Coadriana who sighed again, breaking the silence. Well, whatever, it's not like a prison, I hope. She leaned back on her bed, watching the ceiling before Leah's excited face crept up above her, climbing up onto her bed. Koa, you were sent to prison once? She asked with a low voice, whispering as if it was some kind of scandalous secret. Eh? No, why would I be sent to prison? She asked, sounding hurt by her idea. Because you said, Leah murmured, now a bit confused. She could easily be sent into one, for indecent acting, or sexual harassment, Aurora said, signaling it with her hands that only Leah could read. Use your powers, Coadriana protested, sitting back up. You know I can't read sign language. Damn it, don't talk about me behind my back. I can't talk at all, Aurora answered, now riding into the air. Fuck you, you cheeky bitch, Coadriana scoffed, crossing her arms while Leah looked at her with an open mouth, but with sparkling eyes. Language. Aurora wrote again. Don't twist Leah's vocabulary. Ugh. Coadriana flinched, looking at her, but it was too late. What is a bitch? She asked, tilting her head. I know the word fuck. I heard it once. I had a bad dream and I wanted to sneak into the bed of Mom and Dad, but they were doing the sex thingy. She said nonchalantly. Mom was shouting at Dad, saying he should fuck her harder. Hey. Mom's face was very pleased then. When I am going to find my own Papa Bear, I will also tell him to fuck me harder. Nya-ha-ha, she said proudly, with hands on her hips while laughing. Now what? Coadriana blinked her eyes rapidly, gulping, looking at Aurora for advice, who was just as flabbergasted. Beats me. Act like this never happened? She wrote back. Deal. So, what is a bitch? I know the fuck is the sex thing. When the penis goes into the... Coadriana cut in before Leah could go on a weird rant and try to explain what they were taught back home when their body came to age. A bitch is someone who sleeps with anyone, and I mean, does the sex thing with anyone, for money. Oh, Leah clapped, gaining a new understanding. School is going to be so much fun. She laughed. Huh? The two looked at her again, but she just stuck her tongue out. I already learned something new. Yeah. In the middle of the H-shaped main building of the academy, at the topmost floor, a spacious office overlooked the main entrance and the garden before it. It was the office of the headmaster, and he was standing before his giant window, looking at the many students, walking and talking, getting ready for the new semester. Behind him lay a sturdy table made out of bronze, stacked with documents, forming multiple towers. The walls were filled with bookshelves, many items protected by a gently pulsating force field, forbidden for many people to touch or read their titles. Before his desk, 4 chairs were placed, and they were seats that none of the students here ever wanted to sit on. That would mean they were in some deep trouble that not even their royal background would manage to pull them out of. This year is going to be interesting, the headmaster murmured to himself. He was a good-looking, charming man with long, white hair flowing freely behind him. On the top of his head, he had 2 sharp and fluffy fox ears, and he wore his white fox tail wrapped around his waist. He was wearing an elegant navy blue suit with multiple golden decorations on his chest, just like a legendary general would, which was almost a perfect description of his past. His name was Lucian, a fox demon who was already 500 years old, and he rose to fame centuries ago. His background was that of a simple boy from a poor family who rose to the top of the continent without being part of any of the big shots of the realm. He was one of the few independent figures who stepped into the prestigious ranks of those who reached the level of the 3 Rai. He was at the level of Magi Supri, and since reaching that stage, 200 years ago, he took over the role of headmaster. Before that, he was someone who led an adventurer group and fought side by side with 2 of the 6 houses, exterminating undead nests all around the continent. His crimson-colored eyes were watching the students, and they quickly stopped at a trio of girls who were exploring the garden before the school. The last time one of the houses sent their children to the academy was 400 years ago. He formed a small smile, letting his canine teeth show. Right after that, two of them butted heads for the position of first of the realm. Huh. I just hope my lovely school and my beloved children won't be affected by it. Chapter 6, First Day. When the day of the new semester came, all of the first-year students were assigned to one class. They were gathering in a vast auditorium, sitting in multiple rows, numbering more than 100. Leah wanted to sit right at the front, but luckily, Coadriana could persuade her to walk straight to the back, at the highest point, saying they could see everything from there. "Good job," Aurora wrote to Coadriana, who whispered back to her, "No way I sit right in front of a teacher. Damn. I wouldn't be able to sleep then." "I won't bail you out if you flunk the courses," Aurora added. "Please, what can they teach us we do not know? Especially for someone like you? I bet you are the only one here who fought against the undead. None of us even seen one yet." "Yeah, you fought those," Leah cut in, catching on to the word undead immediately. "What was it like?" Aurora tilted her head. "Dangerous. They are hard to kill because they are already dead." "Makes sense." Coadriana chuckled. She wanted to say something more when the door opened to the auditorium and a young-looking man walked in. He let his long white tail sweep behind him, closing the door as he walked up to the podium, leaning against the teacher's table and looking over the youngsters with his ruby-like eyes. "Hey," Coadriana whispered to the duo. "He is one sexy foxy." "Welcome," Lucian clapped, sounding like a gong, silencing even the faintest murmur as its shockwave pressed onto them, strong enough to halt everyone's breath for a brief moment. "My name is Lucian, and I am the Institution of 8 Elements headmaster. For the next few years, you are going to be my students, just as the students of the many teachers working at our prestigious academy." He started his speech, looking at them with a faint smile. "As this is the first day of your new life here, it is just and proper that I would welcome you." "He looks so fluffy," Leah whispered in a mosquito-like voice, prompting even Aurora to nod, watching the swaying foxtail behind the headmaster. "I am always happy to see so many young talents coming to my academy year after year," Lucian continued in a cheerful voice. "All of you are going to have special lessons in the future, aimed to help you master the element of yours. But for that, we need to determine what it is first." He laughed, and his voice, even as he spoke calmly, echoed next to everyone's ears. "He is strong." Aurora signaled with her hands, while Leah translated it to Coadriana. "That man fought many battles for sure. He has a look in his eyes that I only saw in our own veterans." Lucian's eyes met with hers just as she said it. It was only a fraction of a second, but Aurora knew that he sensed what they were talking about. "First of all, let me give everybody the most important thing in our academy, your very own identification. Look at it as your key to success in our academy," he said as he flicked his hand, and in front of everybody a deeply violet-colored swirling portal appeared, and a silver bracelet fell out right into their hands. "Put it on," he said, and his voice was eerily commanding. Leah didn't even hesitate, already excited, clamping it onto her left hand like she would do it with a watch. As soon as it was in place, it lit up, forming a perfect circle that she could not get off anymore. A small, colorful projection rose up from it, showing her figure dressed in the school's uniform. Next to it, she could read her name, age, body condition, height, weight, everything. "Hey, my breasts are bigger." Coadriana complained under her breath, reading her own stats, receiving some gazes as others, mainly guys, turned around, already checking out her chest. "This is so cool," Leah squealed with sparkling eyes as she swiped on the image. It quickly followed her command, switching tabs, and now it showed her schedule for the day, only having this lesson appear in it. With another swipe, she was greeted with a map detailing the city and the sky that she could manipulate, zoom in and out, or even place her unique markers. She was completely blown away as they had nothing like this at home. The next tab was even more interesting as it showed multiple slots, currently empty, yet a red line was drawn up under her own miniature image, with a flaming emblem below it at the right end. Stealing a glance, she saw that Coadriana had a similar line under hers on the same page, but hers was blue with a water droplet while Aurora's was purple, with a violet swirly badge. "Oh, this must be our main proficiency," Leah whispered as all three of them learned to manipulate an element they had the most affinity towards. In the house of Amarin, as soon as they were taught to read and write, they were also taught how to meditate and draw in mana from the air. Both Rhaera and Kawu taught their kids spells, and Leah was no exception. She already had her own way of manipulating fire. "But I have never seen it like this," she murmured, raising her hand, concentrating on one spell she knew. Just as she did, in one of the empty brackets, a text appeared reading as Ember. Just by looking at it, Leah felt her mana react and be drawn into the bracelet as, from her fingers, a tiny orange ember sparked forward, landing on the young boy's head, setting his black hair on fire immediately. "Ah!" Leah gasped as soon the poor guy screamed out, suddenly being set ablaze. The fastest to react was Coadriana, snapping her fingers and pouring a bucket of water from nowhere onto the poor kid's head, extinguishing the flames. Yet it burnt long enough to leave his head completely bald and shining on the very top of it. "It was an accident," Leah tried to explain as the guy stood up, huffing and puffing, looking at her. He was around 16 years old and tall, reaching approximately 190 centimeters. His face was chiseled as he was on the muscular side, already flexing his arms and twitching his eyelids. Nobody knew who he was, and neither did he know who was the one who turned his looks into a priestly one. "You little bitch," he growled, forgetting everything for a moment. But just as he managed to say it, an obsidian knife pointed directly at his neck, already drawing a thin line of blood from his skin. It was held in Aurora's hand, who appeared behind him, restraining him easily. "Ah ha 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 ha," traveled Lucian's laugh to them, and it alone was enough to dispel Aurora's summoned blade and separate the two. "Our academy does not forbid its students from dueling," he continued, snapping his fingers, and a violet aura surrounded both the boy and Aurora as they were teleported back to their places, made to sit down as if nothing had happened at all. "But battles outside of official duels result in harsh punishments," he explained patiently. After finishing, both of their bracelets buzzed, and now they had a red stripe next to their names, with a slow ticking down timer. For now, it showed 24 hours as it slowly counted backward. "We have a 3-strike system. You will automatically receive a strike if you break our rules, so when you have time, read them through. Depending on the seriousness of your crimes, the strike may stay up for days, weeks, months, or years. Collect 3 of them at once and you are going to be expelled, immediately. No questions are asked, and there are no ways to appeal any of the strikes, so be careful," Lucian warned them with a friendly but also chilling smile. "And here I thought, I am going to be the first to get into trouble." Coadriana chuckled, but Aurora just shrugged, not really bothered by the fact. Sorry," Leah said, feeling guilty as she was led off scot-free, it seemed. "No worries, it was an accident," Aurora signed to her with a smile. Looking at their images, the trio could see that the little bar under their pictures decreased slightly. It was clear that they represented their inner mana pools, accurately measuring how much power they could wield before running empty. "Our little impromptu demonstration showed my next point," Lucian grabbed everyone's attention again. As newcomers, some of you may just start out learning magic. Some of you may come from prestigious families and already know some spells. He waved his hand, clearly pointing toward the source of the previous incident. As you know, true mages wield immense power. We have a responsibility to rein in this power, to harness it, but not endangering others in our vicinity. How? Leah played with the edge of her clothes, lowering her head, while Coadriana just chuckled, rubbing her head, hugging her close, knowing that her little cousin may be a troublemaker, but she would never be one to try and hurt others or provoke them. To achieve this, Lucian's monologue continued, mages use items to help them focus, be it an exquisite staff decorated with jewels and artifacts, or just a simple branch, an earring, or a bracelet. He said, looking over everyone. The one on your hands will be your first enchanted artifact, helping you to focus your mana and spells. Our students, by the end of their graduation, usually find their own items they will carry as their companions in magic, like my grandpa's scepter. Coadriana whispered, still rubbing Leah's head. It was left behind by one of my ancestors after becoming a supri. Left behind? Leah murmured, and the answer came from Lucian, who had just reached that point. Some of you may bring honor to our academy with your own artifacts, and when you step into the realm of the three Rai, you will gift it to us. He clapped, and behind him, a huge image appeared, showcasing a vault with thousands of artifacts floating above golden plaques containing the names of their owners and the date when they were donated to the academy. At that stage, you no longer need them. You no longer can use them. Those of our students who reached that stage came back gifting them to us, and it is our honor to display them in our halls. Maybe one day your own will be in our care, and you will leave your name here for eternity. Is he trying to motivate us, or is he telling us to pay back our tuition fee if we succeed? Aurora asked, writing with her fingers, while Coadriana just chuckled. Mom never told me I should use something like this, Leah murmured, rubbing the bracelet on her wrist. Because we are taught to cast on our own. It helps you understand your body and not rely on crutches all the time, Aurora explained. And as she only moved her fingers, nobody else could hear her, not drawing attention to them. You are not at the Magi level yet. If you had reached it earlier, you would have been given one. Oh, she exclaimed, tilting her head. You already had your own? I used a combat knife in the army. Aurora nodded while Coadriana also answered. I use a ring. She raised her hand, having a blue ring on her right pinky finger. Ah, I get it now. Leah nodded her head rapidly, now looking at the bracelet like a super handy treasure that she needed to be careful with. But I think this thing is even more potent. Coadriana added, also rubbing it on her wrist as Lucian was still talking on the podium. Some of you may never have been taught how to take in mana from the world. Worry not, we will teach you. Those of you who have already discovered your first element. Every mage instinctively knows which of the 8 elements resonates best with their bodies. In theory, it is possible to learn all 8, or any of your choosing. But why would you start with the one that has the least affinity towards you? Lucian smiled, explaining it to them as their first lesson. You ought to start with what suits you the best. Everyone should just focus their mind on their bracelets. It will help you discover the element best suited for you. All the youngsters immediately went and did just that, or at least those who have yet to start learning what it means to be a mage. For the trio of girls at the back, this was already something they did back when they were only 4 or 5 years old. Aurora was quickly discovered to be proficient in the element of darkness. After being trained primarily by Kawu, she became skilled in fighting, ambushing, and dealing with enemies in close-quarters combat. When she joined the 4th branch and went under Solrin's leadership, she quickly perfected her proficiency, becoming a deadly weapon by age 16. Coadriana was the same as she. Like many from her branch of the family, she felt the closest to the element of water. She especially liked to be part of the third branch, as they lived on the shores of their territory, close to the most significant body of water in the whole realm. Leah's contact with Mana was even more straightforward. She once set her father's beard on fire when still only 2 years old, then clapped and laughed happily as she watched him try to blow it out. Her mana was easily manipulated from a very young age. She only had difficulties raising her own pool of it and climbing upwards in ranks. Something was interfering with her concentration when meditating, and neither her parents had found a solution yet, turning their daughter into the slowest among their children regarding the growth of her magic. As the trio looked around, they suddenly realized an emblem had appeared on their vests from nowhere without them realizing it. Leah's was crimson in color, forming the image of a flame, while Koa's was blue and in the shape of a water droplet. Aurora gently tapped on hers as it was deep purple, just like her hair, and in the form of a smoke cloud. Everyone else found that after their bracelet recognized their innate affinity, it was showcased on their uniform instantly. As they proudly examined it, Lucian's voice again grabbed their attention. "Today, this is your only class." He smiled, watching the hundreds of excited faces. "You have time to explore your new gift, the school, and familiarize yourself with each other. Tomorrow is going to be the first real day for you, so don't be late," he explained, fixing his clothes. "Hopefully, this is the first and last time you all see me before graduation. If we meet again before that, that could mean only 2 things. You are either in big trouble, or you have achieved something incredible." "Oh yeah." He stopped, looking back at them from the door. "Only those who reach the state of Magi Adepti can graduate. Everyone else who fails to reach it in 4 years is expelled at the end. So work hard." He winked at them before disappearing into nothingness, leaving a shocked group behind. "Then we are safe," Aurora wrote in the air, drawing out a sigh from Coadriana too. The two were already at the stage of Magi. They just had to go through their first tribulation and step into the level of Adepti. On the other hand, Leah felt pressure mounting on her, knowing full well she was not the fastest when it came to advancing. By the time her brothers were 12, as she now, they were preparing for their tribulation. "Relax," Coadriana laughed, watching her face, rubbing her head. 4 years is a long time." I hope so," Leah gulped. "Let's go. Grab something to eat," Coadriana said, standing up. But before the 3 could go, the guy who was set ablaze stepped in front of them, drawing many pairs of eyes to their group. "I challenge you," he said, eyeing Leah, who barely reached up to his chest. "Listen." Coadriana furrowed her brows, already stepping before Leah, while Aurora summoned a black knife into her hand, holding it behind his back, ready to intervene. "It is fine, Koa!" "Aurora." Leah stepped before them, looking into the eyes of the guy. "I accept." Just as she said it, both of their bracelets suddenly lit up, and they could hear a synthetic yet charming female voice speak up. "An official duel has been initiated. The challenged party. Please name the date of the duel." "Oh." Everyone flinched as they were not told how this would work, and they were finding it out live. "Well," Leah tilted her head, "I am fine doing it right now." "Arena D12 booked," the voice said as a 1-hour countdown appeared for both of them. "Please head to the designated arena marked on your map. If you fail to appear in an hour, the duel is considered forfeit, and the challenger is deemed victorious. CP will be distributed accordingly, while the challenged will receive punishment." "CP?" Leah asked reflexively while Aurora answered, writing into the air as she flipped through the many menus on her new device. "Contribution points. It says it is the currency inside the academy. Everyone starts with 100. Winning a duel can award one with 5 and upwards, depending on..." Many things. She wrote it very quickly, still reading it. It says there are even ranking lists for not just duelings, but the number of points one has. Oh, there is a list of the biggest offenders and most punishments. I am surprised Koa is not on it already. Fuck you, Coadriana scoffed, rolling her eyes. You almost killed the guy on the first day. You are on the list already. Oh, Aurora nodded. True. Hey, the man shouted, drawing their attention back to himself. Are we doing this or not? He asked, getting irritated being ignored by them. Sure, all three answered at the same time. Let's go. Leah laughed, fired up as they were followed by many of the first-year students, curious about what would happen next. Chapter 7. First Duel. Following the details on their map projected by their bracelets, it was easy to find the designated spot. It was an open field behind the Academy's main grounds, and there were 100 parcels, numbered up and separated for hosting duels between students. Every arena was exactly 200 square meters, surrounded by a half-transparent, off-white colored energy field. The D12 arena was in the fourth row of the many parcels, and when arriving, their group had around 60 people, all trying to see how a duel could be fought between the participants. Now what? Leah whispered, trying to get some tips from the girls, but they also just shrugged their shoulders. Just go in, I guess. The boy challenging her said, raising his hand, touching the energy shield that lit up, and the familiar synthetic voice resonated from their bracelets. The challenger and the challenged are present. Please proceed. After that, the boy simply walked through it, and Leah followed suit, not wanting to stay behind. Yet whenever anybody else tried to do the same, the energy shield around the field rejected them. They could do nothing but spectate from the outside. It was not a proper way to watch a match as it was fuzzy, looking in through the veil, only seeing the two's blurry outlines. Not to mention they were cut off from them in a way that they couldn't hear what they were saying. The participants agreed to allow spectator mode. The female voice talked to every one of them from their artifacts as a pop-up appeared above all their bracelets. It was a simple window asking if they wanted to spectate, which had a cost of 3 CP. Hell yeah, Coadriana said, tapping on it, and soon she had a clear projection before her, watching the fight through a perfectly clear screen. While everyone was tuning in from the outside in the arena, the two were looking around, a bit surprised. At first, it was nothing but a slag field, but then the synthetic voice spoke to them. As the challenged student, Leah has the opportunity to determine the type of field the duel will commence in. The type of field? She asked, tilting her head to the right and rapidly blinking her mismatched eyes. All fields are randomly generated after the challenged chooses one type from the 8 elements, the voice explained patiently. What is your element? Leah asked, looking up at the surprised boy who raised an eyebrow. Are you looking down on me, girl? He asked, scoffing, getting even angrier. If you want to know, it is Earth. He pointed at the rock-like emblem on his vest. I forgot. Leah nodded, crossing her arms, thinking. I choose an ice field. What? Everyone asked simultaneously on the outside, too, as everyone knew she had fire as her element by now. Choosing something that was water-based was the worst possible outcome. She is tenacious, isn't she? Coadriana chuckled while Aurora nodded. She asked me to get Grandpa's scepter because she is adamant about learning to control ice. Not even Lady Rhaera started learning a second element before the Adepti stage. But she is not even capable of casting a water spell on the level of Intiati, Aurora added, sending a message over via her bracelet. She is not even a magi yet. I don't know what goes on in her head. When I asked her about it, she said nothing. Coadriana answered, she either couldn't explain it, or she just doesn't know herself. Anyway, choosing an ice field is not that bad. It can be detrimental to her opponent, too. We'll see. Aurora smacked her lips, watching the feed from the arena. Their surroundings quickly changed, and soon they were in the middle of an ice field. They stood on opposite sides to each other, balancing on a relatively small chunk of ice, while they were surrounded by dangerously cold water. On its surface, multiple dozen different-sized ice platforms were floating and bobbing up and down. It was hard to tell if this was real or a simulation, but it sure felt real as both of them shivered, feeling the cold wind whistling by their faces. "Brrr! Awesome!" Leah laughed, shaking herself, and a faint reddish hue covered her, expelling the cold quickly. "What is your name?" she shouted towards the other side of the arena. "Raufon!" he answered, shaking his body, and he quickly transformed. His body grew out a big patch of black fur, and his face also transformed into a mix between some rodent and a bear. His fingers turned into claws, and as he breathed out, it was like a dragon exhaling before spitting fire. I don't recognize your kind. What clan of beasts are you from?" Leah asked curiously, as her opponent twitched his short whiskers at the end of his now elongated mouth. "Kamarian devil." He answered in the end, fulfilling his opponent's curiosity. "Nope. Don't know. I will read up on it, though, and truly sorry about it previously. It was an accident." "We will settle it with this duel," Raufon answered, already having enough chit-chat, making his first move. With his claws on his feet, he easily found his footing, rushing forward through the chunks of ice, quickly closing the distance between him and Leah. Leah grinned happily as it reminded her of the way her father fought. Kawu was not just a bear, but a short-faced bear. His favorite form of fighting was to ram into his enemies and wrestle them, including his daughter when it came to their sparring sessions. "Nya!" she exclaimed with a cute voice as she shot out, blasting forward as if she were wearing jet-powered boots. She flew in an arc, vaulting over his head, tapping on the bald spot she left on him, still visible in his beast-like form. "You are it." Raufon's only answer was a fully enraged cry, sounding like an ear-splitting roar, screeching to a halt, carving up the ice chunk he was on, rushing after her. Leah was laughing like a kid on the playground, being chased by him, and when it looked like she was cornered, she propelled herself up into the air, boosted by a trail of fire, doing a ballerina-like pirouette, landing behind Raufon. "Can't catch me!" she shouted, once again on the run, skidding on the ice like a skater. "Ah!" Quadriana sighed on the outside, followed by an echo of a dozen others sighing and then laughing. Leah was among the few young kids in the academy, as most of them came when they turned 16, right at the edge of being recognized as adults in the outside world. Graduating from the Institute of 8 Elements guaranteed they stepped into their adult life with many doors already open for them in the outside world. Seeing her reducing the supposed duel into a game of tag made them realize she was still just a kid. The only ones who did not think it that way were few and far between, one of them being Aurora. She wore a small smile, watching not how Leah was running circles around Raufon, but instead, Aurora focused on the state of their arena. The chunks of ice were getting constantly smaller and thinner as she rushed over them with her fiery steps, melting them away bit by bit. Leah was counting on sinking the guy. At least, that was her guess. When Raufon felt it was enough playing, realizing he wouldn't catch her, he lowered his hand, letting his claws dig into the ice below him. With a flick and a roar, he broke off a massive chunk of it, reinforced by suddenly appearing hard rocks, and flung it forward with all his might. It was as if a boulder was tossed into the water, blowing a 3-meter-tall water curtain into the air, generating violent waves around Leah. "Woo!" she shouted, trying to find her balance as everything bobbed up and down, and she was almost washed off from her platform. The already too thin and weakened chunks broke apart around them, quickly sinking into the cold depth, while Raufon summoned a platform, jumping onto it before his own was gobbled up by the water. Leah was not expecting it at all, but she was not flustered. Focusing on her known spells taught to her by Rhaera, her hands lit up in red light. Wearing the bracelet made it much easier to focus her mind, sending her energies forward as she threw out 2 spinning discs made out of the blazingly hot flames. "Humph," Ralphon snorted, placing his hands before him, raised up as it was covered in rocks, letting the spells hit him. The resulting explosion threw him off his platform, sending him underwater, leaving behind a white trail of smoke, expanding outwards, filling the arena with mist. The cold water extinguished Leah's fire immediately, and visibility went down to 0 instantly as the fog covered everything. "Oh?" The young girl flinched as she felt her thinning platform of ice crack and a rocky hand reach out, grabbing onto her. "Kala!" she cried out, not because of Ralphon's strength, but because his hand was freezing her. He was also not feeling well. The water was way too cold, even as his body was covered in a complete armor of rocks, looking like some kind of golem. He was losing stamina fast. It took a lot out of him to get back to the surface and not sink, well, like a rock. "I don't want to bathe yet," Leah cried out, knowing he was trying to drag her down. So with all of her might, she flew up, propelled by her flames, dragging Ralphon into the sky. "Don't look under my skirt," she screamed after looking down at him and simply stomped right into his face to get him off her. The most surprising thing was that it worked. Ralphon had no mind to even peek at her underwear as he was focused totally on their fight, but could do nothing but let her go when she kicked his head. He felt his nose being broken, the armor covering his body shattered as he was shot back into the water like a meteor. Everyone else was surprised on the outside as it was not boosted by magic. It was simply her physical strength. "Kawu?" Coadriana asked, and Aurora just nodded before sending a message over. "Master is insanely strong." She smiled, remembering seeing him demonstrating his full physical strength once. It was only 1 slap in his bestial form, yet what remained of an undead warrior was nothing. No bones, no gore, no blood, nothing. His 1 slap simply exterminated the undead from reality, leaving behind only a lingering aura and the stench of unnatural origin that they possessed. Leah still has his blood in her. She is stronger than the average human, and some average beasts. Back in the arena, the waves that were left behind by his violent impact reached up to Leah, washing her out of the sky and dragging her down underwater in an instant. Her move helped Ralphon as he managed to ride the raging waves, forming another platform to stand on quickly, balancing on it like a surfer. He was breathing heavily, his face was disfigured, and his nose and jaw were clearly broken, with some of his teeth missing. He was watching the water, trying to stay on his feet as his platform was rocking back and forth until the cold blue water finally settled. "Duel has been won by the challenger." The synthetic voice finally cut in, surprising everyone. The arena lit up in a blinding light, expelling the 2 instantly and making them appear amongst the spectators. "Leah!" Coadriana hurried next to the unconscious girl, tapping on her chest, which immediately woke her up. She sat up hurriedly, coughing up a great amount of water. Her teeth were clattering together as his hair stuck to her face. "Cold!" she moaned, looking around, a bit confused about what had happened. That was a bad idea. How?" "It was silly." Koa rubbed her wet head, relieved as Aurora also dispelled her summoned sword, watching Ralphon from the crowd and planning multiple ways to assassinate him right there. "You were doing so well, yet it backfired on you in the end." She flicked Leah's forehead. "Don't lose your composure that easily. What if he saw your bunny-themed panties?" "No! Not fair!" Leah cried out, letting thick columns of steam rise from her head as others laughed out hearing it. "Come, stand up, you silly girl." Coadriana laughed, pulling her up. Winner, Raufon. The synthetic voice spoke up from his and Leah's bracelet at that moment. As no special condition was stated when issuing or accepting the challenge, the duel defaults to the basic rules of dueling, transferring 10 CP over from the loser side, Leah. Why does it have to rub it in? Leah grumbled, still feeling extremely cold, turning around and watching Raufon, who was still aligning his nose back to place. Good fight, she laughed, waving at him. We are good now. Yeah. He nodded, wiping his bloody mess of a face into his uniform. We are. Tee-hee. Leah grinned happily before Coadriana started to push her away. Let's go. You need a hot bath before catching something. Ah, a bath does sound good, Koa. Let's go in together, she exclaimed happily, totally unbothered by the fact she had just lost a duel. Acho! She sneezed, making everyone flinch and return to reality. Watch yourself, Aurora wrote while walking past Raufon, but the boy just looked into her eyes without fear. My kind knows no fear. If you want to challenge me, do it. I won't refuse. He shot back, turning around and leaving. He had already brought up the map from his bracelet, intending to visit the nearest clinic it showed for him, holding his broken face. What did you say to him? Coadriana asked as Aurora caught up to them. Nothing. He is an okay guy. She wrote, smiling a little. Being hot-headed is not a sin, plus, Leah did burn his head. And then I even kicked his teeth in, she added proudly, laughing, then sneezing once again. Achoo, how I'm freezing. And that, too, Koa laughed, looking at her grinning cousin as they returned to their dorm room. Chapter 8, Brother Lala. When the next day came, Leah was already up early in the morning. Luckily, she managed to avoid getting sick after being soaked in freezing water, and she was woken up by Aurora. She had just returned from a light jog before the sun truly rose above the horizon. She was wiping her face with a wet towel, her purple hair tied up into a bun as Leah moaned, stretching, sitting up in her bed. The only one not willing to get up was Coadriana. She was holed up under her blanket, groaning and complaining that they were too noisy. It's morning, Leah laughed, jumping over to Koa's bed from hers and landing on her cousin. If you wake up late, you won't have time to shower. Leave me alone, she cried out, wriggling under the blanket, trying to throw Leah off her. Nobody should wake up before 9 in the morning. I'm going first, Aurora wrote in the air, ignoring Koa and occupying their bathroom, while Leah just nodded at her, grinning. Come on! Leah nudged Koa constantly, throwing off the blanket in the end, trying to pull Coadriana into a sitting position. She was wearing nothing but her black panties and a white undershirt that barely fit onto her body. Her head bobbed to the rhythm of Leah shaking her by the shoulders, almost making her throw up. Stop! Stop! She moaned, pushing her away as Leah laughed childishly, wearing a bunny-like costume as a pajama. I'm up, okay? Geez. She tried to open her blue eyes, but the morning rays of the sun were hurting them. I hate mornings. Mornings are the best, Leah replied, her face still held between Koa's fingers. The air is fresh, and everything sparkles under the sun. How do you have this much energy? Is it because you learn fire-based spells? Dunno, she replied, hopping off the bed like a bunny, quickly throwing her pajama off and running to the wardrobe. She was completely naked by then, shaking her butt before Coadriana as she picked out what she would wear under her school uniform. Coming in, she shouted with her panties in hand, kicking in the bathroom door, making Aurora flinch, who was already standing below the shower head. Ultimately, she just shrugged, letting her join, helping Leah wash her hair like a caring older sister. Damn. Coadriana clicked her tongue, finally getting off her bed and simply walking into the bathroom, joining the two. Hey, Aurora wrote in the air with her hair while washing Leah's back. Get out. One more does not matter. Koa laughed, looking at her body. Girl, you have a nice shape going for you. Great curves and tones. A bit short, but hey, guys like that. You are just too tall, Koa, Leah giggled, looking up at her with her blue eye, squinting to not let shampoo get into it. "Stop touching." Aurora flinched, exhaling and writing the words into the air with her breath as Koa's hands were on her waist, tickling and caressing her body. "Foo, foo, foo, Viren," Quadriana grinned. "Says who?" Aurora snorted, letting the words form from her hot breath and manipulating her hair, so they tightened onto Quadriana's wrists, prying her hands off of her body. Okay, I will stop teasing you." Koa stuck her tongue out, starting to indeed wash herself down. "This is the best." Leah laughed, sounding the happiest of the three. "I like being with Mom and Dad, but being with you is much more fun." The two just smiled, looking at her, and even Quadriana forgot to be grumpy for waking up early. By the time they left their dorm, they still had enough time before the first class to visit the cafeteria on the main floor of the academy. It was filled with students of all ages, races, and classes. There was a long line before the counter where students could order any kind of breakfast they thought up. It seemed that to even consider getting into that line, one had to be an early bird. "No way I am joining up," Koa murmured, and now even Leah nodded, finding it way too dull. "Follow me." Aurora signed, walking towards the far end of the huge cafeteria and past the hundreds of tables where the students enjoyed their meals or hugged a mug of coffee, trying to wake themselves up. When stopping, Aurora stood before a row of vending machines, numbering in the dozens. "What is this?" Leah asked, tilting her head, playing with hair braided into twin tails. Her ancestral home, the castle, built by her forefather, Arias Amarin, was left as he envisioned it. She never left the castle and was oblivious to how far magic technology had advanced in 4,000 years. "Magic technology," Quadriana answered, looking at the machines with a thinking expression. They were ones that sold sandwiches, fizzy drinks, multiple kinds of teas, iced and hot, different brews of coffee, or even alcoholic refreshments. Everything was there. They only had to choose and pay with CP. Artifacts?" Leah asked again, tilting her head to the opposite way. "Kinda." Aurora signed to her. "They are made with magic formations that keep the food or drinks at the desired temperature. I read up on them." She pointed at her bracelet that had access to many things, even a virtual library. Of course, everything had to be paid for via CP. They are engraved with formations inside. It says that they keep the food in perfect condition for years, not letting it rot at all. The guy who invented them was a student here. Now he is one of the richest moguls out there. "Whoa, so cool!" Leah tiptoed from one leg to the other, reading her hand signs. On the other hand, Quadriana, who had no idea what they were talking about, just a faint guess, was already standing before the machine, selling beer. Perfect. She grinned, selecting the most appealing brew, but the transaction was aborted as soon as she was told to hold up her bracelet. Students under 18 cannot purchase adult goods. Her artifact warned Koa, refusing to finish the payment. "Damn it, why sell it then?" She stomped at the place, almost kicking the machine, while Aurora silently laughed. "Because some teachers need it." A deeper male voice interrupted them, and Leah flinched as if lightning had struck her. Turning around, she saw a 2-meter-tall, lean man standing behind them. He wore elegant black trousers, a loosely buttoned-up white shirt, and a crimson vest. His curly blonde, shoulder-length hair was tucked behind his ears as he smiled at the trio with sparkling blue eyes. "Lala!" Leah squealed as she jumped on him like a cat, hugging his neck, rubbing her face against his and purring loudly, causing a scene amongst the students walking by, especially amongst those budding female apprentices who idolized him as one of the most desired teachers of the academy, Lauren Amarin, in more ways than others. He was good-looking, charming, as if he had just walked off from the pages of fables, here to save the kidnapped princess. Then there was his family name, Amarin. He was from one of the 6 houses, Anybody marrying into his bloodline would be transforming herself from a duckling to a swan. Yet here he was, hugging a kid. What the hell was going on? "Hey, I told you, don't call me that while being outside." He chuckled, rubbing his sister's head, looking at her warmly and patting her back before putting her down. "You know how shocked I was when I saw you here," he said, looking not just at Leah but at Aurora and Coadriana. "Young lord," Aurora wrote, bowing while Coadriana flinched, following suit as, in rank, he was above her, and also damn good-looking, stunning Koa entirely as she had never met him yet. "I told you to call me brother." He sighed, but then walked before the vending machines, buying multiple drinks and sandwiches. "Come, we are causing a scene here." He nodded with his head towards the main door, leading the trio out of the cafeteria. While leaving and looking around, Leah was confused as to why so many people were looking at them, or at her. Some were even spewing jealousy from their eyes, and she felt a bit scared. Then that scare grew to confusion, and from that it turned into righteous anger, as she felt offended by them, making a mental note of their faces. On the outside, Lauren found an empty gazebo in the vast garden, sitting down with the girls, placing a can of coffee before them with a ham sandwich to go with it. "I was surprised to see you all here," Lauren smiled, opening one can for himself. "I grew a lot," Leah added proudly, but he just grinned, rubbing her head. "Let me guess." Aurora wrote in the air with a knowing look. "Lady Rhaera did not tell you we are being sent here." "Nope." Lauren sighed, looking into her violet-colored eyes. "And call her Mom. We told you many times," he added, reaching out and flicking her forehead. "Damn." Koa clicked her tongue, but not because of their topic, but because as he did that, she got a whiff of his natural scent, feeling something bubbling up in her. "Now I fully understand why they were looking at us like that." "Ha ha 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 ha. You must be Koa, right?" Lauren smiled, which was a bit evil-looking, but that just made him even more attractive. "I heard about you a lot. Well, you know, we are pretty similar." He winked at her, turning her face redder by the moment, but also her eyes started to sparkle. "Don't encourage her," Aurora cut in while Leah just munched on her sandwich, enjoying the fact she met up with her second brother after so many years. "What are you teaching here, Lala?" Leah asked, looking up at him, swinging her legs happily. "I am in charge of that." He pointed outwards, and following his finger, they saw one of the 8 satellite landmasses orbiting the floating island. It had a bone-white tower in the middle of it, surrounded by a golden hue gently radiating from it. "I am the head of the Tower of Light." "I wanted to ask," Koa said, "what are those floating landmasses?" "You should read more. You can access it from here," Aurora wrote, raising her hand with the bracelet on it. "Hey, just tell me," Koa moaned while Lauren chuckled before answering. "Aurora is right. You should read more. But I will tell you. We have 8 towers orbiting the Institute. Because—" He looked at her, waiting for some light to appear in Coadriana's eyes, but she waited patiently for him to continue. "Because we have 8 elements," Leah answered proudly after seeing her silence. "Yes." Lauren sighed, shaking his head. "All of you, sooner or later, will visit one of the towers related to your chosen element. The teachers there can help you out if you run into trouble. We have a huge library with thousands upon thousands of spells, formations, and whatever you need. They are basically the vaults of the academy, related to the elements of magic. Since my main element is light, I was made into its head teacher, with my proficiency. I do not teach classes, but conduct private lessons for those who pay for it. I bet some girls are lining up for it, ready to pay whatever it takes," Coadriana murmured, wiping her mouth. But it was hard to tell why, as she was also having breakfast. "I won't deny that," Lauren answered with a grin. "I came out because I was notified of your duel yesterday and watched its recording," Lauren said, playing with his sister's hair. "They are recorded?" Aurora asked, surprised. "Of course. You can ask for it if you want to review your mistakes, for example." Lauren nodded. "This academy is the most advanced place in the realm. That is why I love it here. Plus the girls are cute too." "I am cute too," Leah added, making him laugh. "Sure you are. That is why I had to come and see my adorable little sister." He stood up after kissing her head, immediately letting Leah's eyes sparkle. "If you need help with something," he said, raising his hand, and their bracelets beeped as he did so. Looking at it, they saw that a menu popped up where they could add different contacts that could not just be called, but even pinpointed on the map it had. "It can do that!" Coadriana exclaimed, quickly adding Aurora and Leah to her list. "Of course! And even more things." Lauren continued, "Headmaster does not tell you about it for a purpose. He thinks that those amateurs who are not explorative in nature, who do not seek out the unknown, are not fit to be called mages. This little thing can do much more than you think." Lauren smiled mysteriously. "Study it well, kids. Later on, when you have a chance to create your own artifacts, it will come in handy." "Can't we keep these?" Aurora asked, already loving most of its functions, especially the map. It would be truly helpful if she could have something like this in the wilderness. "Nope," Lauren answered quickly. "They are bound to the academy. Leave its premises and it self-destructs, alongside with your arm." "Ugh," the trio flinched, turning a shade whiter at his words. Lauren forced back a laugh as Coadriana quickly caught on. "Damn, don't scare us like that. Ha 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 ha. Sorry, I couldn't miss that. Okay, it won't explode, but it would be disabled and nothing more than a fancy ornament. Also, after reaching a certain stage, you won't need something like this. Trust me." Lauren patted their heads. "It was good to see you, girls. If you land in trouble, call me. I can't get you out of anything, so don't be stupid, but I can help you out here and there." He winked at them before leaving. "See you later, Lala," Leah laughed, waving at him as he left the garden, while he was also waving back at her until he disappeared from their view. "Your brother is a hell of a man. Geez, how could someone like Kawu splurt out someone like him?" Koa asked, while Leah just tilted her head, looking up at her. "Mom said she did the hard work, carrying Lala for 9 months. Can't argue with that," Aurora wrote, finishing her breakfast, looking at her bracelet, intrigued about what else it could do that they had no knowledge about. "I like him," Koa moaned, stretching, enjoying the morning air and the sun's gentle rays. "He is good-looking, playful, and his scent is fucking hot." "Scent?" Leah blinked her mismatched eyes, confused. "Lala has Lala scent." "You will get it. One day." Koa grinned at her. "Are your other brothers like him, too?" "Solrin is not as sleazy," Aurora answered immediately, and it was evident she had great respect for him. "He is friendly like him, but his appearance and how he carries himself is more righteous. Lauren is more of a wild card." "I smell some bias coming from you." Coadriana teased her while Leah slurped on her coffee, finding it funny tasting but not as bad as she expected. It was her first time drinking it, and she started to like it. "Of course." Aurora nodded, not denying it. "He is someone I look up to. He saved my life multiple times, and not just mine, but many others, too." Foo, I see. She grinned even wider now. "What about Razael?" Koa asked them about the firstborn of Rhaera and Kawu. "He is leading his own adventurer group right now," Leah answered, standing up, waving her hands, clearly fired up to the maximum possible. Or it was the coffee. Maybe both. "He sent back letters 3 months ago. He reached the far eastern part of the continent and said he is hunting a dangerous undead with 4 other groups." "How dangerous?" Aurora asked, as she did not know about it. Probably because that letter was sent to the head of the family, Rhaera, and Leah simply snuck in one day and read it out of curiosity. Leah tilted her head, thinking back. It said he was fully sentient, strategizing and leading his own band of an undead group. "Fuck," Aurora wrote, taking a sharp breath. "What?" Coadriana asked, and now even Leah was a bit more worried. Sentient undeads are minimum at the level of adepti. Those that can lead others, probably even higher. I never met one of those. Solrin wouldn't let me to places where it was suspected they had an intelligent one. "Raziel should be fine," Leah clapped, calming down quickly, having unshakable faith in her brothers. "Mom said if nothing goes wrong, he should be the first of us to reach the level of Supri. Lady Rhera is expecting all 4 of you to reach the level of 3 huh?" Koa smiled, looking into Leah's red and blue eyes. "Of course," she answered proudly, not even bothered by the fact. "Jeez." Koa looked at Aurora with a pitying gaze. "I wouldn't want some heavy shit like that put on me." "We should go to class," Aurora replied, bringing up her bracelet displaying that they had only 15 minutes to arrive at the auditorium. "Or we will be put under some heavy shit if we are late on our first real lesson." Yeah, Koa stood up and then blinked her deep blue eyes. "Where has Leah gone?" Just as she asked, they could hear her laugh coming from their artifacts as she connected to them simultaneously. "Last to arrive buys our lunch." "You little—" Koa gawked, but as soon as she looked up, Aurora was gone, already merged into the garden's shadows, hurrying away. "I'll get you for this," Koa shouted, rushing after them hurriedly. "Damn it, if this school were on a lake— bitches!" Chapter 9. Library of Rejects. Sitting at the highest seats in the back, the trio of Aurora, Leah, and Coadriana were inspecting their bracelets, fiddling with their menus while waiting for the teacher to arrive. "I found a place we should visit. It says it has the best cakes in town," Leah whispered, sending it over to the 2. Aurora already pinged it on Koa's map, who just scoffed, pursing her lips. "Cheaters," she grumbled, looking at the 2 sideways. "No expensive things, got it?" "None. Damn it. We should get some jobs to earn this CP thingy." "I agree." "You are not as stupid as you look, huh?" Aurora sent back a message, receiving nothing but another glare from Koa. "There is a mission hall in the school. We can check that out. We can accept many kinds of jobs in the city, too. Everything uses CP. There is no real money exchanged here. That way nobody can influence the school from the outside. No matter where one comes from, they won't have access to their wealth." Leah spoke up, sitting between the 2. "Converting outside world money for CP is also punishable by expulsion from the academy, and a notice is sent out to all graduated mages as to which family is blacklisted. It happened a few times in the past, and all of those families who tried it are no longer amongst us. They went broke in a few years, or worse." She explained with a proud look, watching the 2's dumbfounded looks. "And where did you learn about it?" Coadriana asked, shaking her head, not expecting that the one who told them this would be Leah. "Here." She raised her hand, flicking it, letting her bracelet shine a little in the rays of the morning sun. "I read it under the blanket. You 2 went to sleep so early, I was bored, so I played with it. I found the rule book, too. It was already on it, so I read through it. It has something like that." Koa flipped her wrist, returning its menus until finding it under a sub-menu. Nope. She closed it immediately as it was 400 pages long. "You read it? All?" Aurora asked, writing it in the air. "Yep, it was fun," Leah nodded. "Doubt that," replied both of them at the same time. "It was. I wanted to know it because, losing that duel, I lost 10 CP. That was a bummer." She sighed, showing a small, pouting look. "I need to make up for that, and also I need to earn more CP," she said seriously. "I read everything in it. Without CP, you can't buy anything good. I read that you can take private lessons in the Tower of Water, and there is a teacher specializing in ice magic. That is why you knew what they were when I asked Lala. Coadriana snapped her fingers, already calling him the same way as his sister did. No! Leah stuck her tongue out. That was simply because you are stupid. You little... Koa grabbed her cheeks, pulling them apart while Leah just laughed, not minding it at all. Trying to play the big girl, Iafidi half of my monfly. Leah tried to say something pretty private but was smacked on the top of the head by Aurora, giving her a double punishment with Koa still pinching her cheeks. Q! She yelped out, a bit surprised as Coadriana let her face go. Meow. Not fair, she murmured, rubbing her now blushed face. That was 2 verses 1 inch. Life is not fair, Aurora answered, and before Leah could reply, the door to the auditorium closed, drawing everyone's attention to the woman who walked in. She was around 160 centimeters tall, with a wide hip resting on thick thighs, quickly captivating most of the boys' attention in the front rows as they watched her bottom shake while walking forward. At the top, she also had a pair of tear-shaped breasts jiggling pretty freely. Even though the mature woman wore a business suit-like uniform, her top left her with deep cleavage, swallowing all the youngsters' gazes and making them forget to speak. Those are some extra heavy weapons. Coadriana bit into her lips, amazed by what she was seeing. I wouldn't be able to fight with those on... Aurora added, sending a message over. Her horns are cute, Leah added as she watched their teacher's face as soon as she entered. She looked to be in her late 20s or early 30s, always carrying a caring smile. Her wavy hair was bright, pinkish in color, reaching down to her shoulders. 2 little horns grew from her forehead, serving as a headdress with a thin golden chain connecting them. Welcome, she said, her voice kind and mellow, caressing everyone's ears with a motherly feeling as her pink eyes looked around the students. My name is Diane. I am going to be your homeroom teacher. While attending the academy, you can come to me with any troubles you encounter. I am here to guide you and help you out, she said, even bowing a little. Her voice alone conveyed how caring she was, and her bow showed respect towards them as young geniuses. But everyone could only think about her cleavage that was out on display at that moment. Damn, Coadriana said while Aurora repeated the same word with her hands. Leah tilted her head to the right, crossing her arms, displaying a pondering look. What? Koa whispered, elbowing her, curious why the serious face. I was thinking how Mom would look with boobies that big, she answered honestly, making some of the students in their vicinity flinch. Like a freak, Coadriana answered immediately. Your mom is smaller than you. Damn, I still don't know how she survived carrying 1 kid into the world, not to mention 4. Magic, Leah answered, winking at her, shutting up Koa as she couldn't find an argument there. As your homeroom teacher, Diane continued, I will also teach you the basics of casting magic. I already read all of your files and memorized all of your names. She raised her hands, tapping on her own bracelet, and soon around 60 youngsters' artifacts let out a short beep. You are all going to attend my elementary course as I help you teach you how to meditate, draw the mana from the air into your bodies, and help you learn your first spells based on your elements. At that moment, many of those who came from a prestigious family, already having a basic understanding and reaching the first rank, clicked their tongues simultaneously. The rest of you will sign up for one of my other courses related to your element, where I will teach you in bulk, Diane said, looking around, raising her hand, writing in the air, leaving behind glittering words. Monday mornings will be fire, the afternoons will be water, Tuesdays will be earth and nature, Wednesday will be air and metal, Thursdays will be darkness and light. Every Friday I am going to host a lesson in the morning where we are going to discuss some unique and quirky fun things. I hope to see you there too. I promise it will be fun. As she was explaining it, everyone's bracelet was beeping, and they saw how their calendar was recording their classes, where to go, and when. "I'd be delighted if you attended my classes, but it is not mandatory." "Yes," Koa whispered, already relieved. "But every year, we have 2 tests," Diane warned, raising one finger while watching her new students. "One after New Year, that measures your knowledge. It is a written test with questions from my lessons on your element. If you fail it, you receive a strike that lasts until the end of your school year. The second test is at the end of the semester. It will be hosted by the 8 leading teachers of the academy, and you will be given a random test that you need to complete. Failure means you repeat your year and receive a permanent strike." As she was saying it, many of the students gulped while Aurora eyed Coadriana, warning her silently that she should take this seriously. It was their house's name on the line. The only one who indeed took it seriously was Leah, not even looking at the two, concentrating on what Diane was saying. She opened her bracelet's projection like a book, writing on it with a virtual feather. Aurora blinked her eyes, noticing it, but she had no idea how Leah did it. Maybe she read more than just the school's rule book? "Between classes," Diane clapped, easing the tense atmosphere, squishing her breasts together as she interlocked her fingers before her stomach. "You can do whatever you want. Many opportunities exist here, in the city, or around the island. You can take up jobs, learn practical skills, attend special lessons, and form study groups. There are no limits. You can do as many things as you have time for. We believe in our headmaster's motto, experience is the best teacher." She chuckled, closing her eyes for a moment. "Now, everyone who is not a beginner, you are free to leave and explore the academy. The rest, follow me and we will visit meditation hall, and I will let you enjoy your first time." She laughed innocently, not even noticing that what she said was something that everyone misunderstood at first. Those who were indeed beginners happily hurried after her, following her out of the classroom. The rest only woke up after she was gone, while Coadriana stretched with a satisfied moan, leaning back. "It is not as bad as I first thought it would be. Most of the time I don't need to wake up early, huh? Yay!" "You still owe us lunch," Aurora quickly reminded her, "and when you are going to be out of CP, don't come to us because you were lazy." "Don't worry." She winked at her and then looked around at the dozens of horny boys still here, trying to stand down before standing up. She could feel it in the air, especially as their teacher's overwhelming, mature aura still lingered around them. "I already have multiple ideas on how to make a bank." "I want in on it too," Leah flinched, returning from her thoughts. But Aurora flicked the back of Leah's head before Koa could nod. "Owie, what?" she grumbled while her older sister shook her head. "No chance I would let you accompany Koa in that. I promised our mother." "Ooh, but Koa is already an adult. She should know some tricks," Leah protested, drawing a proud grin onto her cousin's face. "Do not even dream about it." Aurora signed with her hand, and her purple eyes were commanding while empowering her gaze with her aura. "Let's stop it here for today," Coadriana chuckled, standing up as many of the first-year students had already left the auditorium. "I know we made a bet about lunch, but what do you say if we meet up at 6 instead? Then we visit that cafe or cake shop you looked at," she asked while fixing her clothes. "I'm planning to look for a place to swim a little. There has to be a pool or lake here. Something." "Sounds good," Aurora agreed, following suit. "I'll look for some jobs in the meanwhile that are combat-oriented. I don't want to get rusty." "I'll explore the city then," Leah added, raising her head, not wanting to be left out. "Just come back by 8, Koa said, rubbing her head with a smile. "Okie dokie!" She laughed, and after exiting the school's main building, they all went their separate ways. Leaving the academy's premises, Leah quickly arrived in town, opened up her map, and looked around the points she had already marked the previous night. She had multiple shops pinpointed out, selling potions, ointments, gear, books, and even some that offered different services. walking through the busy streets, her shoes clopped against the cobblestone streets, surrounded by many other students and people living there. She'd never seen so many people in one place before, making her a bit dizzy, turning her head left and right when someone walked past her. She followed her map's directions and was thankful for it, as she felt she would already be lost amongst the many intersecting, winding streets and alleys. Finally, she arrived at a corner store, her first destination, a bookshop. It was situated on the bottom floor of a 3-story building made out of red bricks, its black, a bit faded wooden doors sitting in an angle of the junction of 2 streets. A dozen or so books and codexes were on display in its windows, some even dating back 1,000 years. Looking up at the sign plastered above the door, it read, "Library of Rejects." Perfect. She smiled victoriously as all of the books at first glance were tomes about magic, or related to magic, spells, formations, or simply general knowledge. Pushing in the heavy door with a multicolored glass embedded into its middle portion, a wind chime echoed above her head as she stepped over the doorstep. Not a popular place, huh? Leah thought to herself, looking around as she was the only customer inside. Where is everybody? She looked again because she did not see any employees either. She even opened the door a second time, checking for signs that it was closed, but nothing. Well, maybe the name of the place was not that good of a choice? She shrugged, walking in, noticing a black cat lying atop multiple stacked books on the lonely counter, lazing around with a bored expression. It only raised its eyelids a little, checking out Leah when the chimes waked it up. Its yellow eyes glowed in a golden hue for a moment before returning to normality, and it just yawned, lowering its head. Leah was unbothered by the silence. She even preferred it. Nobody was here to bother her browsing, no others to fight for a book that she may find interesting, but someone else wanted to buy it. It was the perfect outcome. She hummed happily as she looked around the display shelves where books were seemingly put on randomly. There was no rhyme or reason they were there, and some of their titles were weird. Tome of Hair Grow? Book of Love? Huh, Koa would like this, she whispered under her breath, going through some of them. Codex of Extinct Beasts, Guide to Procrastination, Gentleman's Guide to Swearing. She stopped, looking around before taking the book off, flipping through it before closing and putting it back in its place. Ugh, she shuddered, visualizing the first few words she read in there, feeling sick. That is not for a gentleman. Going over to a different shelf, there were more and more books to choose from, some sounding weird but also interesting, like Theory of Element 9, or one that had the title of Theory About the Origins of the Undead, and many more. In the end, Leah spent an hour browsing the shelves, walking to the long counter and flipping through the open catalog of their complete inventory. When she came about, she noticed the black cat sitting next to her on the counter, watching her face as she browsed the thick inventory book. Seeing its intelligent, shining eyes, Leah immediately had the urge to pet it, but as soon as she raised her hand, the cat spoke, making her jump back. "No touching," she said in a charming voice, yawning. "I hate to lick off the smell of humans." Sorry, are you a beast folk?" Leah stuttered a little, playing with her fingers, a bit sad that she could not pet her. "Beast folk?" The cat scoffed, shaking her head. "I am a magical beast. Don't compare us to the half-breeds, okay?" Aren't beasts are beasts?" Leah mumbled, feeling lost for a moment. Yeah. She stood up, stretching lazily, meowing a little in the process. After what happened 4,000 years ago, my kind suffered the most. Few of us retained our history, and few of us retained our intelligence. The world has changed, and it is now yours to rule, she said, her voice calm and even. This is how nature works. But don't be surprised if you come across others like me. We are few, but not extinct. Sorry, I was just surprised. she said, listening to her with twinkles in her eyes, fascinated by her story. She read about beasts, how there were some magical creatures, big as a mountain, roaming the wilderness, but she never read about ones that were just as intelligent as a human or a beast folk. It happens. So, what would it be? She asked, watching Leah's face. Yes. I have chosen some books I'd like to buy. She nodded her head, listing out her findings. Fire of Noon, Ice of Midnight, Acting Cool, Basics of Potion Brewing. The cat flicked her whiskers, shaking her body as she simply disappeared. When she was back, making Leah wait for minutes there, 3 thick books teleported right before her, thumping loudly on the wooden counter as they arrived. Acho! She sneezed, waving away the thick dust that was blown into the air as the tomes were sitting somewhere for who knows how long. 48 CP, the cat said, expecting some haggle to commence or sudden surprise and anger at the price, maybe even backing out of buying it altogether. To her genuine surprise, Leah just nodded, raising her hand with the bracelet, paying immediately. Oh. The cat blinked her eyes, taking a good look at Leah. You, I like. Thanks. She grinned, moving her hand ever so slightly as the black cat continued. Still, no touching. Huh? My name is Cece, she said, making Leah smile with happiness as she also introduced herself. You are the first not to start to haggle for prices for some bullshit books. Good. It did not happen for 184 years. Oh, that long? Leah asked, surprised. Yes. Anyway, as a reward here. She shook her whiskers as an indigo-colored speck fell onto her bracelet, opening a new tab with a cryptic message in it that was made up of hundreds of runes she had never seen before. What is this? Leah scrolled through it, surprised and excited. A clue. Decode it and you'll see. If you fail, nothing is lost. But to read it, you have to prove yourself. Good luck. Cece yawned, walking back to her place and laying back on her books, which were used as a bed. Thank you, Cece. See you later. Leah laughed, grabbing her books, holding them to her uniform, smudging it with gray dust. But she did not mind it. Sure, Cece answered, already back to ignoring her as she left the shop, going to a place she had looked up at the previous night named Alchemy Haven. Chapter 10. Alchemy Haven 1. By the time Leah arrived at her next destination, she was wearing a simple backpack she bought at one of the stalls, stuffing her books into it. She saw some pouches that had enchantments on them, capable of storing many things. The only problem was their price was in the thousands of CP. Letting out a depressed sigh, she looked at the busy shop before her, shaking out her frustration from her head. Unlike the bookstore, a sea of people constantly came and went in there. Getting in was a feat in itself, pressing her small frame through the bodies of older students and local citizens. Finally stepping into the shop itself, other impatient students were pushing her forward so she would make her order at the counter already so they could move on. "What can I help you with?" asked a teenager standing behind the counter, looking at her with a bland look. He was around 180 centimeters tall and had straight, short, greenish hair and emerald-colored eyes. By his uniform, he was a third-year student, and his element was displayed as someone dabbling in two already, nature and earth. "I'd like to buy some low-level ingredients that can be used for starting out, learning alchemy," Leah answered, looking around, feeling dizzy. The counter itself was filled with thousands of images of plants and unknown ingredients. Then there was the constant buzz of others talking, haggling, and ordering their own components. She glanced at the inventory book but had no idea what was what, not even when she read the names listed next to the images. I see. The boy nodded, remaining calm and unbothered, but a small smile was noticeable on his face. It was evident he approved that someone young and by her uniform, a first-year student was interested in alchemy. "Your element is fire, yes?" he asked, receiving a nod from Leah. "That will help you make potions, but you need to control it carefully. What kind of potions are you looking to make?" I don't know," Leah replied, hesitating a little. "I have 40 CP to spend. Can I get some for that? I am fine with things that have no real value. I just want to experiment and get a feeling for it." I see. He nodded his head, approving her thought process. But he also saw the growing line behind her getting restless, murmuring that this is not the school. An amateur should start there. She just holds up the line. One moment. He smiled, reaching under the counter, and soon he picked out a small box. It was the size of a music box that she had back home, next to her bed, sitting on her night table. It was dark brown in color, made out of some kind of wood, with a six-sided formation atop its lid, locked down by a soft golden energy seal. "Here, it will be 40 CP. "What is this?" Leah asked, but then her bracelet beeped, displaying the transaction window. "Oh? An item box?" She quickly read it, as it was an artifact crafted to hold a fixed amount of alchemy ingredients, keeping them fresh. From what she read, it had space for 20 items, not bigger than a human heart. Right now, it was filled with 20 different essential ingredients, enough to try and craft one of 5 beginner healing potions. "I'll take it," Leah smiled happily, paying for it quickly. "Thank you." "Sure thing." The boy nodded, but before Leah could say something, she was already pushed to the side by another, almost making her drop her new box. She was grumbling before finally being ejected from the shop by the sea of people pushing against each other. "This place sucks," Leah moaned, finally catching her breath, standing outside, holding her item box to her body. "Ooh!" She shook her head, turning around to go to another place when she collided with someone. The sudden impact drew a yelp out from her as she landed on her butt, while her box crashed against the pavement, loudly shattering in the process. "Wah!" Leah drew in a sharp breath, sounding like a cry. She was dumbfounded, watching the sturdy-looking box of hers splinter and spill out its ingredients. Even worse, the one she crashed into lost her balance and, as she was trying to find her footing, stepped all over them, crushing most of it in the process. "Damn, watch where you go, pipsqueak," she shouted down at her, as she was at least 2 heads taller than Leah. She had medium-long black hair reaching down to her shoulders, and her yellowish eyes looked at her with contempt. "You good, Yanura?" her friends asked, looking to be around 16 or 17 years old. Leah, watching their uniforms, quickly determined they were second-year students in command of only one element. The one she bumped into had the same icon as Koa, a blue water droplet on her vest. She had an hourglass-like figure and clearly wore faint makeup to look even more beautiful, right in the middle of her blooming period. "My ingredients!" Leah stood up, stomping in place, looking into her eyes with puffed-up cheeks, pouting and turning angry. "You have to pay me for those. Those were 40 cents. "Pay you? Look where you go, idiot. I ain't paying you shit." "I don't want shit," Leah harumphed. "I want money." She stretched out her palm, pointing into it. "Pay me." "What?" The girl flinched, thinking she heard it wrong. She was a second-year student, yet a kid was demanding her to pay for that worthless stuff on the ground? "Go away, pipsqueak, before I hurt you." She laughed, echoed by her friends, finding it hilarious. "So you won't pay?" Leah stomped in place again, now gathering a small crowd, curious about what would happen. One of the spectators, a third-year student, was also looking on, his silver-colored eyes focused on the group of girls. He was wearing his school uniform, displaying his light element with a golden star. Dot, dot, dot. He almost stepped forward to intervene, but then he heard Leah's following words. It made him raise his gray eyebrows and run his fingers through his almost white hair, tucking it behind his ears. "Nice." "Then I challenge you to a duel." Leah pointed at the girl's face. "I refuse." She answered immediately. "Don't think I have time to play with every little idiot that comes around." I evoke my right to force a duel of righteous cause, Leah said, her voice firm as her hair slowly floated upwards behind her. Her mismatched eyes watched the girl's stunned expression as she did not know what was happening. Yet the next moment, her bracelet lit up, and the familiar synthetic female voice spoke out from both of theirs. After review, righteous cause was invoked successfully. The challenger, please state your demands. I want, Leah said, completely focused, unblinking, watching Yanura like an owl. Yanura to pay my damages. Also, I want her to pay 100 CP as punishment because of her previous refusal. What are you on about? Yanura shouted, but the voice simply acknowledged it. The system deemed it acceptable. 140 CP in total. Arena A1 has been reserved. 15 minutes until the duel commences. Wait? I don't have a say in this? Yanura screamed as the countdown appeared for her too, and Leah had already left, hurrying towards the arena, leaving her broken item box and ingredients behind, still under the feet of the girl. Righteous cause, the voice said, almost like explaining it to her. After suffering valid humiliation, the challenger can state his or her desires to regain his or her pride. The system deemed her to be correct in evoking her rights for a righteous cause. The challenged has no say in the stake of the duel. If the system deems it sufficient, the duel commences as usual. Note: if the challenged wins the duel, he or she is exempt from another righteous cause duel from the challenger and is exempt from paying any reparations. Fucking hell, I never heard of this, Yanura said, surprised and even shocked, but then her friends quickly turned her sudden fear into glee. She is a first-year student, with fire as her element. What are you afraid of? Ah, damn it, I was just too surprised, Yanura said, hitting her forehead, now much calmer, laughing with her friends. I don't want to strike. Well, let's go. Let me beat that kid, and we can continue our day. Most of the people in the crowd sighed, thinking Leah was in for a real beating, not even following them, going back to their own things. This was not that rare to be surprised about in the end, yet one of the spectators thought otherwise. The young man with gray hair and eyes followed the group, intending to spectate what would happen. The first to arrive at Arena A1 was Leah. She placed her hand on the energy barrier, waiting for Yanura to arrive. Her blue and red eyes were resolute and serious, looking like a warrior, ready to stare down death itself. As she stood there, she moved her head slightly, noticing a third-year student arriving, even before Yanura. He just smiled at her and nodded a little, prompting her to return the gesture. Before she could start thinking who he was, Yanura also arrived with her friends in tow. By now, she was confident and ready to teach Leah to a painful lesson. She said nothing and entered the barrier, followed by Leah without a flinch. Her friends, including the silver-haired man, quickly activated their bracelets, inspecting their duel from the outside. Challenged, the system's voice said. Choose the battlefield. Humph. Yanura smirked, watching Leah's fire emblem on her vest. The open ocean. As soon as she said it, the scenery changed, and they were standing on a little, floating wooden plank, facing each other around 20 meters away. The sky was free of clouds, and it was a hot summer day inside the arena, and the surface of the endless blue waters was calm, just like a mirror. I'll teach you, Yanura said, already stepping forward, easily walking on water. But she was interrupted. Leah shot forward as if she was shot out from a cannon as soon as Yanura opened her mouth. Leah's legs burned with crimson fire, whistling through the air, aiming a lethal kick straight at Yanura's neck, coming down from an angle. She barely managed to raise her arm to block, and when it met with Leah's shin, she heard it breaking. And it was not Leah's leg that cracked apart. She couldn't help but scream out, then was sent flying backward from the transmitting energy, blowing a huge water curtain into the air, sparkling in the strong sunlight. Leah was floating, kept above the water by her fire burning below her feet, making her hover in the air. Her eyes watched the water, scanning, knowing this was not the end. Yunura's attack came from under her a moment later. It was as if a shark tried to bite at her from below, but Leah was quicker. She flew away, spinning midair, forming a finger pistol, and shooting at the appearing water shark. Her balls of flame hit it straight, but it remained undamaged, extinguishing Leah's attacks quickly. "I'll break your bones, bitch!" Yunura appeared at a different place, her arm already fixed, holding a small empty vial between her fingers. "Potions?" Leah murmured, flying further up as the water shark constantly followed her to bite down on her legs. "Being an amateur, you forgot to ban consumables!" Yunura flashed a grin, waving her hand while her bracelet lit up. She summoned 4 blue magic circles that shot out fast, sharp, and highly destructive water spouts. They were as thick as an arrow but could easily breach most armor, not to mention human flesh. They took a lot of mana from her, but she already grabbed another vial, drank a potion, and refilled her spent mana. ... Leah said nothing, dodging again, taking a quick look at her mana pool, which was decreasing steadily as she was literally burning it to make her able to fly. On the outside world, the silver-haired man tilted his head slightly to the right, thinking to himself, "Her mana is at the magi level, so she can keep up with a second-year student, but her spells are only at the discipline stage. Something is missing." "You are a quick one, I give you that." Yunura clicked her tongue inside the arena, "but you need to learn your place." "I know my place," Leah answered, her red eye locked onto Yunura. "I am right where I want to be." Listening to her, Yunura was forming a new magic circle, combining her summoned ones after failing to land a hit on Leah. She wanted to unleash her strongest spell, creating a water tornado, but what she saw made her gawk. Leah slowly closed her blue eye, only keeping the red one open, raising her hand. In it, a robust sniper rifle was forming, similar to the one her mother could conjure. In size, it was bigger than Leah, but it had no actual weight. It appeared only in a second, burning in a bright orange hue, while Leah looked through its scope. Before her open eye, a formation started to appear, locking down straight at Yunura, displaying not just her coordinates, but also the wave that her mana fluctuated at. Every living being who managed to learn how to use magic had their own unique resonance. It was what made them possible to manipulate it and cast spells. And now Leah locked right onto Yunura's. "Warning!" Leah heard a voice in her head, coming from her bracelet as her mana was reaching close to 0, feeding it to her spell. Everyone knew if a mage overdrew her powers and exceeded what she could handle, it came at a price. It was bound to have a backlash. Depending on the amount, it could even be life-threatening. If nothing else, being knocked unconscious was a guarantee. Yet Leah ignored it, instead pulling the rifle's trigger. "I'm not afraid of you," Yunura shouted, but it was mainly aimed at her own psyche because what she felt at that moment was precisely fear. She hurriedly changed her spell, already transforming it into defense, raising the ocean's water to form a bubble around her. "No use," Leah whispered as her body was distorted, turning ethereal and exploding into embers of flame. What she shot out was not a bullet or energy ball. It was herself. It took her only a millisecond to appear before Yunuri, slipping by the completed defenses of her, appearing inside her now enclosed prison. "What?" Yunura shouted, surprised, blinded by the light accompanying Leah's teleport-like move. "I don't need mana nor items, only my body," Leah said as she flashed an evil grin, ignoring that she had almost no mana left and simply punched out. She hit Yunura straight in the stomach. It gave out a resounding thud, shutting her up entirely and cutting her breath short. She shot out violently, but as she enclosed herself in her strongest defense, she crashed against the ceiling of her bubble. Before she could drop down, Leah was up next to her, her palm whistling forward, smacking straight into her jaw, followed by a crack and a few of Yanura's teeth flying in the opposite direction, faster than her body. Leah did not let her fly away this time, grabbing her hair with 2 hands, spinning her the other way, and smashing her against the water prison like a rag doll. On the outside, Yanura's friends were horrified at what they were seeing, and the silver-haired man gently twitched his eyebrows, trying to keep his composure with great effort. He wanted to sigh but couldn't, as this was not against the rules. The system would automatically interfere if any of their lives were in danger or close to being crippled. Everything else was permitted. When Yanura's body was being flung the other way, Leah still holding her by the hair, she felt a tug at her body, and everything turned white. The next moment she stood outside the arena, holding only a few strands of Yanura's hair, while her opponent was unconscious, lying a meter away from her. It was the same as her previous duel. The moment one of the participants lost consciousness, it immediately ended. This time, Leah made sure it was not her. "Winner, Leah, transferring over winnings," the synthetic voice said, and Leah's grin widened, watching her CP reserves jump up from 2 to 142. "Yanura!" Her friends gathered around her, helping her sit up as she slowly recovered consciousness. She was dizzy, her face hurt, and she wanted to cry. "You!" One of the girls stood up, but then the gray-haired man stopped between the two groups. "Stop," he said, raising his hand, glancing at Leah first, who curiously tilted her head, blinking her mismatched eyes with innocence. "Scion, disciplinary committee." He officially introduced himself, resulting in everyone's bracelet around him in a 5-meter radius, beeping and displaying an empty projection with the words, "Waiting for judgment." "Huh?" Leah gasped, even more excited as she read about them. They were a group of students that were selected by the system. Becoming a part of the disciplinary committee was not something one chose to do, it was earned. Nobody knew the exact criteria, but since its establishment 2,000 years ago inside the academy, its members were the police force on this floating island. Their job was to make sure the rules of the academy were held up by its students and that visitors to the island were not a danger to the others. When Leah's group arrived, Scion was part of the 3-man group that checked them in when the Pearl docked in. He was amongst the few who knew her last name because of it. "We did? Nothing," Yanura's friends quickly said, standing up, forgetting to help Yanura stand up, raising their hands in defense. "I wouldn't say that," Scion said, smiling a little. "I was watching you for a few days," he continued, holding his hand behind his back, facing the group all together. "There were reports of bullying amongst the second-year students, and all of my leads led to you lot." He looked into their eyes, scaring them. Surprisingly, all of the victims had one similarity. They had an amicable relationship with Master Lauren. "Eh?" Leah flinched, twitching her mouth, leaning to the left, looking out from behind Scion, watching the girls with a weird look. She did not expect her sudden meeting with such a nasty group of girls to be because of jealousy and because of her brother. "We?" Yanura tried to say something, but her face was hurting, and she was still bleeding from the wounds that her knocked-out teeth had left behind. "Shut it." Scion shook his head, flicking his fingers as a light strap simply sealed all of their mouths, unable to speak anymore. "I am not interested in excuses. I collected enough evidence, especially when you lot ran into Leah here. I have recordings of you casting a spell," he explained, watching Yanura, "that weakened the integrity of her box, making sure it broke apart after crashing down. Stepping on the ingredients was just an added bonus." He sighed, shaking his head. "I already had the system review everything." Now, her reaction to invoking a duel was surprising. Scion laughed, looking back at her over his shoulder, drawing an embarrassed chuckle out of Leah. "But it is time I mete out the real punishment." "Mm-hmm." The girls tried to say something, but Scion just raised his hand. "By the rights bestowed upon me," he said in a steel-like voice, Every one of you receives a strike until the end of this semester." He snapped his finger and their bracelets beeped, recording it down. "Be happy. That is all that you get now." Scion added, his voice plain and dry, "I despise people like you. If I ever hear rumors of similar antics, I will turn your strike into a permanent one." After finishing, the energy tapes that held their mouths were removed, but none of them had the urge to say anything. Scion was simply watching them, his unfriendly eyes filling them with fear. In the end, Yenora stood up, looking at Leah, who merely returned her gaze, utterly unafraid of her. "What's your name?" Yenora asked. "Leah," she answered, walking out from behind Scion, standing straight, placing her hands on her waist, and puffing out her flat chest. "Your family name," Yenora repeated, her voice seething from anger that she tried to hide. "None of your business," Leah answered, sticking out her tongue. "Don't even try to intimidate her with outside threats." Scion spoke up, but it was not the type of warning that the group of girls thought it was. This time, he warned them out of kindness. "Let's go." Yenora moaned, turning away, wobbling, supported by one of her friends in the end as they left. "Heh, thanks," Leah giggled after they left, looking up at him. "Sure." Scion nodded with a smile, looking at her and scanning her body. That was interesting. "Tee-hee!" Leah blushed a little, and she wanted to say something when her legs faltered, and if not for Scion, she would have fallen backward. "Ooh-ah, I'm a bit woozy." "Of course." He laughed, supporting her with two hands from behind, producing a small vial. "Drink it. It restores a small amount of mana." "Thank you," Leah exclaimed, grabbing at it and gulping it down, already feeling strength returning to her, managing to stand straight again. The moment I relaxed, everything started spinning. "Adrenaline sometimes is even better than mana." Scion patted her back. "Feeling better." "Much better." "How much?" Leah nodded, raising the empty vial. "Nah, don't worry about it." He shook his head. "It's cheap, only 5 cents. "That is a lot," she protested, wanting to pay him, but Scion patted her head that she did not refuse at all. "You lost your stuff, huh?" "But I have money now. I can repurchase it." Leah laughed, already back in a happy mood as her mana was quickly regenerating, surprising Scion with how energetic she looked only after a minute. She was already bouncing a little, after remembering that she now had a lot of CP. "Is that so?" Scion asked, crossing his hands. "Say what?" "What?" Not like that." Scion flinched at the immediate answer from her, not letting him continue. "What?" she repeated, different from previously. You." Scion faltered a little, and watching her mismatched eyes, it was hard to tell if she was playing him or if she was serious. Her face throughout the duel was pretty serious, yet now she was acting like a little girl again, making him sigh. "Say, let's say, so, I will accompany you back to Alchemy Haven, okay? I know the guys at the back. Let's get you a sweet deal, huh? I also need to buy this and that, so it's a good deal in my books." "Whoa, really? Really? You are a good guy, sure. Yay, I like you. Want to be my friend?" she asked, already sending an invite over to him. "Sure." He nodded, accepting it. At first, he was uninterested. He heard about the 6 houses all his life growing up, the ancient tales, legends, and fables, but they were exaggerations in his eyes. What made them great was the wealth that they amassed through thousands of years. He had his pride, believing that one day he would reach the same height as one of the house's best mages. After seeing Leah's item box be broken, he was about to step in, but what followed greatly surprised him, especially when Leah did not give away her background in the end. Now he was interested, not in the name of Amarin, but in Leah.